Hello, everybody, and you are listening to another edition of JetNation Radio, a very new edition of JetNation Radio. We're actually on camera for this show and hopefully for many shows going forward. We're going to be breaking down plays on film. We got this whole thing set up. It took about a week. We're very, very excited to be doing this. Unfortunately, it's not a live show, so people can't listen live, but we're going to be able to share plays, etc. And if you want to call into this show, let me just get this out of the way first so I do not forget it. You're going to have to dial new number now, 1-669-900-6833. You're going to hit pound, and then somebody's going to say a couple words to you, whatever. It's a robot. Then you hit a pound again, and then you can dial the PIN number, which is 989-311-8641. That's if you're calling in by phone. If you want to call in by the computer, if you want to talk to me and Glenn on video through Skype, or if you want to download Zoom, whatever it may be, like our good friend Kyle Smith has, you're just going to go to join a meeting, and then you're going to dial 989-311-8641. So we're excited to start this. Glenn, my man, what is up? And maybe we'll figure out how to get an intro next week, but for now, there's going to be some problems, obviously, so.
Yeah, excited to give this a shot, Joe. I'm sure there'll be some speed bumps and hiccups or whatever you want to call it. But as we've said, nice opportunity to share some game film with the fans, break down some of the things this is a good opportunity for us. Proves to show I'm doing well. A little bit chilly here in England. So I have to throw on the cap at, as you said, 1:10 a.m., a little bit chilly downstairs. So, but still looking forward to getting this done.
Yeah, you got a nice background. You have a bookshelf back there. You have Jets hat. You have all this stuff. I'm in a basement because my connection in my upstairs is just absolutely terrible. So I'm in a basement. So if people are questioning the odd shelves behind me and the roof or the lack of a roof, this is why. But like I said, call in number. I just said that. Thank you to our sponsor, Miles Social, for managing your social media so you can run your business. You can check me out on Twitter, JoeRB31. I just put up a film review. It's about 45 or so plays, which is almost a third of the game, which Glenn probably thinks is too much. You could leave us reviews on the podcast app. I don't think we got any today unless we got some in the last few hours, but we got 4 last week, so it makes up for this week with the lack of reviews, but don't keep slacking and write us one this week. So obviously it helps us get out to other people. We can improve our show. We're improving our show now. Maybe we can get Glenn a mic. Maybe we can get me a better mic. You never know what happens if we help reach out to more people and we grow. So please do that. We also are going to be on YouTube just to get this all out there. It's not going to be live. I'm going to have to post it. I'm going to see how long it takes to download the show, obviously. And then it should be up by maybe hopefully 11:30, 12 o'clock. We will have it up on YouTube. So Glenn, let's get into it here. We have the Jets 34-21 win, which honestly is my first game going to this year because I've been busy. Went to Georgia. Obviously you did the show by yourself there. And then there's another game or two. I just didn't decide to go. I think the Falcons game was pouring out, whatever. I had work. But this is the first game I went to. It was absolutely fantastic for a number of reasons. Obviously, the Jets kicking the Bills' ass. The Jets' second blowout of the year, which is something that we did not expect the Jets to do at all this season. And the fact that it was probably the loudest environment I've been to in quite a bit. Even if the stadium was probably only, I would say, 75% full, maybe a little – I would say it's about 75%. It was still very, very loud. It was very nice to be there. And actually, if there's one point on TV, I was sitting a couple rows behind Fireman Ed, and if you – pause the TV, you can actually see me and Vinny's their back of our heads. So I was watching, like, oh man, that looks like the back of my big head. So it was a fun game. Glenn, any general thoughts? And by the way, too, actually we'll get to it later. Game of Thrones update, even though I already got it. That's why I forgot. But Glenn, what did you think about the environment? I think I saw you on Twitter saying that it was pretty loud, and you heard a couple of Jets chants, etc. So
yeah, I'll tell you what, man. Even being all the way over here in England, and wishing
you could hear it from there.
I could. I turned the volume on my TV down. I said, wait a minute, I think Fireman Ed must be leading that chant because I can hear it through my window. But no, I really, sitting on the couch and I heard one of those chants and I thought, man, that sounded like an old school chant right there. That wasn't the chant we've had the last couple of years. And then, of course, as soon as it happens, within a couple minutes of hearing that, The crowd sounded phenomenal. The chant was great. Then you start seeing all over Twitter that Fireman Ed is leading the chant. Every game this year, win, lose, or draw, it sucks to not be there at MetLife. But man, that game, I was really feeling like, this seems like if you're going to be at any game over the last couple of years, that was the game to go to. An absolute blowout, a great crowd, division rival, national TV, just perfect formula, perfect storm. Jets fans were buzzing all over the internet during and after the game. It was an outcome that, we didn't expect them to beat anybody like that this year, let alone a Bills team that had, put in some pretty good beatings on some of the better teams in the league so far this season. So you really have to commend the Jets for the way they came out and played, and the fans for how fired up they were on a midweek game.
Yeah, and obviously the Jets had a little bit of luck too this game where everything kind of went wrong for the Bills. And obviously I'm not taking away from the Jets, just, to recognize it. We're not one of those shows going to come out, oh, they actually, the Bills played their best game and the Jets just, beat their ass. You had the Tyrod fumble. You had the Jordan Matthews fumble where he was reaching out for a first down. I believe it was 3rd and 7, tries to reach out for the first down, fumbles it. He actually hits his own arm when he's reaching out, negates a 45-yard field goal try. The Nick O'Leary, play where it's kind of not fluky. He doesn't get touched. He gets up. Jamal Adams and screen and Marcus May, kind of teamed up to rip the ball out. So it's kind of like, sketchy. Some things went wrong for the Bills. But the Jets played really, really well, and it was a fun environment, especially when you compare this to what we saw last year and the year before that, just the lack of effort, the old veterans are getting overpaid and not playing hard. This team coming out, balls to the wall, and I'm sure everybody who's listening to the show who's probably a big Jets fan or a casual Jets fan saw the whole Jets dance to anything hashtag on Twitter, which was extremely fun. Some of them were just really entertaining. I'm actually kind of mad at myself that I didn't get one of those videos up on the screen, even though I probably could. Actually, I will when we're about to talk about it. But Glenn, any comparisons from this team to the team last year? Thoughts on that too? Because it's just been so fun because, we expected this team not to be too good. And obviously they've been better than both of we've expected. But at the same time, they're better. And the energy they're playing with, which is what both of us wanted to see, is exactly what they're showing us every single game. So good times.
Yeah, I think that's what all Jets fans, at least the vast majority, Jets fans who had a realistic outlook on the season, expected them to or wanted them to just come out and play hard and show some effort, because it's one thing to have a season where you don't make a lot of noise, where you don't make the playoffs, where you don't win playoff games, et cetera, et cetera. But if the effort is there, the fans are going to keep supporting, and it's what you want to see with a young team. I mean, if you can't keep if a team with this many 22 and 23-year-olds on it can't stay hungry, then you have some real problems. But it's been nice to see these guys develop. We've seen, we'll get into it today with, when we get into more detail on who did what, studs and duds and whatnot. But man, just across the board, that's what made it so much fun, is that, just a blowout where so many young guys stepped up, and some veterans made some plays too. But, offensive side of the ball, defensive side of the ball, just everybody, whole team effort, we haven't really seen that this year. It would, if I had to pick one thing to complain about, it'd be the defense letting up a couple of late touchdowns again. Luckily this week they had a big enough lead that it didn't end up hurting them. But at the same time, it's like, when is this defense going to have a fourth quarter where they just shut the opponent down? But all in all, great game across the board. Everybody played well. The run game, I mean, we talked about it. I tweeted you either during or right after the game and said, how much time I got tired last week. I got tired of saying how much better this team could be if the run blocking got their act together and if they got some pressure on the quarterback. Now, I didn't mean 7 sacks. If they can get, 3 of those a week, they'd be a much improved team. But those two aspects of the game were night and day from what we've seen this season. And the run game, that was the most exciting part to me, was seeing them just grind up yards, and the Bills had no answer for it. And, almost 200 yards rushing against a team that was giving up an average of 80 a game. So everybody chipped in. The run blocking was there. and just a great effort, really. I mean, you watch that game, and if you took the names off the jerseys, if you took the logo off the jerseys and you watched that team play, you would have thought you were watching a team good enough to make a playoff run.
Easily.
Easily. So they look like a different team, and I'm sure we'll touch on it again. I've seen it said this week. I said it during and after the game, but you can't underscore, or you can't, you have to give a ton of credit to how much better this defense looks when Muhammad Wilkerson wants to play, and how good Darren Lee has looked with the defensive line, giving opposing offensive lines fits and not being able to hold these guys back. And instead of Mo Wilkerson getting shoved aside, allowing one or two blockers to get to Darren Lee, Darren Lee is making a ton of plays, and Mo Wilkerson has gone from being a guy who's laying down on contact to a guy who's playing with his hair on fire. So that has been, to me, the single biggest difference in this team, is that one guy, Leonard Williams got his first sack this week. Well, half a sack, but it's a trickle-down effect. Teams, it's only been a couple weeks, but teams are now going to look at film and say, we can't get away with blocking Mo one-on-one consistently now. We got to find a way to block him, which means fewer double teams for Leo. So some really good things happening for the Jets right now.
Yeah, and we'll obviously we'll get into that, Glenn. A lot to talk about. We'll go through it step by step as we always do. Yeah, in terms of, we'll do the studs first, we'll do the duds. But Glenn, are you ready for our first screen share on YouTube, and for our first screen share of all time here? So let's get this done and see if this works. Hopefully we don't have too many glitches, but here's one of those videos I was talking about. Hopefully it doesn't lag now. Which it might. All right, well, I guess it's going to lag, Glenn. I'll try this one more time. Okay, whatever. It's going to lag. So our first screen share was ridiculously unsuccessful, but that's because it was on Twitter and it had to load. Hopefully it doesn't do that with the plays. If it does that with the plays, then we're in real trouble. But like you said, this is our first time doing this, so there's going to be some bumps, some speed bumps, maybe a cliff or two in the way of this. So let's get to it. Let's go first with the studs, Glenn. Give me your number 3 stud of the game here.
Old man on the or at least a nice game. He looked, and I think it was last week I said that, as much as a lot of fans and we ourselves kind of dismissed the possibility of him still having enough in his, in his tank to be an effective running back, he hasn't been bad this year when he's had a little bit of room to run. So now he had even more room to run than he's had all season. He did a nice job. The Jets had some runs to the outside where he was able to make a man miss and pick up some extra yards after making a move or two. So Matt Forte had himself a really good game. I think he had 77 and a couple touchdowns. So his best game of the year. And again, nowhere near the player he was, but he's far from the liability that a lot of people thought he would be, myself included. I thought that at best he would be, he'd be somebody you could live with. But he's been solid. I would say he's been average to above average, and not a lot of people expected that from him. So tip of the cap to Matt Forte.
Yeah, now I'm hoping you could see this on your screen, Glenn. But yeah, he played well. 14 rushes, 77 yards, 5.5 yard per carry, 2 touchdowns. And Glenn, if I'm correct, you can see this play on your screen, right?
Yep.
Okay, so let's see if this works a little bit better, which it is. On this play, we're going to have a inside zone. You can tell by the way that these guys are blocking, where Wesley Johnson is going to the play side gap next to him, taking that guy on a combo block. They're going to see who has the better leverage on that. One technique right there. Obviously, it is Carpenter who then moves. It's Carpenter, and then Wesley Johnson moves off to the second level. But when you look back, and I look back at this a couple of times, you see how it's an inside zone. So you're going to have an A or B gap. That's the reason I try to go through. A gap being between the center and the left guard, and the B gap being between Carpenter and Beachum right there. You could see how Forte, this is just savviness. This is being in the league for many, many years. He takes the handoff here, and he knows he's going to bounce that outside hole, but instead of doing it directly where he could tip off the defense to running to that side, he sets up these guys inside. So number 92 right there, who's working on Carpenter, is going to try to flash back inside, and the linebacker number 50 are both going to go inside. He bounces back outside, and then he gains an extra, 10, 15, 17, 20 yards right there just by doing that. So you can tell how he really sets up his block here. And this is some of the stuff that we see when we're saying, okay, well, people are crapping on Forte all the time. But then we see plays like this where he's really running well and he's setting up his blocks. And this is what a veteran looks like. So he had that play, which is, really, really nice. And there's also another play that I'm going to bring up in a little bit. But any thoughts on this play, Glenn?
No, it's just a nice job by him, and as bad as Wesley Johnson has been, that's a really impressive job by him getting on a couple different guys. As you said, the combo block with Carpenter, he comes off of that, moves back to the inside, gets a piece of another defender. So, not a great year for Wesley Johnson, not a great game for him. Probably one of his better games on the season. So, just impressive job by him. One thing, whether or not he plays well. One thing you can't take away from Wesley Johnson, intense guy, intense competitor. That doesn't always show up on film, but having had the opportunity to as we've talked about, being at camp and getting some, getting up close during the season for a couple of games, the guy is he's loud, he's vocal, and he gets after it. He's not the most talented guy, but you got to appreciate his effort, and that was one of the better plays we've seen from him.
Yeah, and I want to bring up another one here. Just give me a second, Glenn. And this is a Forte touchdown run. Let me just get it up right here. Okay. So this is another one, and this is another zone running play. And I don't know can you see my Krauser too? You can see my Krauser circling this guy, which is Eric Tomlinson, who is the fullback. So this play is a lead blocking play. Obviously, it's a zone lead. A zone lead being that he is going to go up here and he's going to block the play side linebacker. This time, it being the weak outside linebacker. Yeah. So or the will. So you're going to see this play right here from Forte. You jukes White in the open field right there, and this, like I said, is a zone lead play. And now there's a couple different examples of what. Well, let me see if I can get this back. So just for people's references, so if I'm kind of like pointing to it, which is I guess you can't see me doing, but if Tomlinson was to go to the left side here and take the defensive end, that would be a zone split play, which people have seen me put up a ton. If he was to take the Mike linebacker, which is the middle linebacker on this play, that would be a zone Mike play. If he was to take the backside linebacker on this play, it would be a Bob. If he was to take the strong safety coming up to the right side right here, that would be a boss run. So, just like stuff like this helps us. And obviously, we're not going to make this show too much film centric because we don't want to kind of, alienate the people who just listen to the audio. But this is just a run play. Like I said, it is a zone lead, and Forte makes a cut in the open field, jukes out Tre'Davious White with a nice cut in the open field, and he runs in for a touchdown. So I'll just keep playing this. Glenn, this is another example. He actually stays inside a little bit and sets up his blocks again outside and lets his blockers get positioning on their defenders. So again, just another good play from Forte here.
Yeah, and what I really like, in terms of the big picture, is the way John Morton used Eric Tomlinson in this game with Lawrence Thomas out due to a concussion. Seeing Tomlinson line up at fullback and then going with some bigger guys. I know we saw Dakota Dozier lined up in some jumbo packages. So found a way to still get it done without a lead fullback. Eric Tomlinson, did a good job there of sealing off that edge for Forte. And he's a guy who's becoming a valuable asset, really, because let's face it, having someone complimentary to Austin Seferian-Jenkins on the opposite side is only going to make life easier on him. So Tomlinson, as a lead blocker here, doing a nice job. He's done a nice job as an inline blocker at tight end. So yeah, big picture wise, looking at this play, that's my first thought is, there's Eric Tomlinson doing a nice job again and becoming a pretty valuable asset for a guy who was added off of the Texans practice squad last season.
Yeah, so just to go over it again too, if Tomlinson was to block this guy, inside split, one of these, if he was to block an interior defensive lineman, it would be a wham zone. On this, it would be a power zone if he was to block, this defensive end right here. This is the lead. This is the Mike. This is the Bob. This is the boss. So this play really, the name of it actually depends on where Tomlinson right here is going to go block, because whatever play he's going to go block is which these offensive linemen are going to let free. And also you see Ardarius Stewart and his value here actually coming up to block this defensive back right here, and seals him, inside on a semi-crack block. Usually it's kind of a blind side is the definition of a crack block, but semi-crack. So Glenn, the other guy who's going to kind of fit in with my number 3, I'm agreeing with you on Forte right here. The other guy for me is Powell. Looking at his stats over here, 9 rushes for 74 yards, 8.2 yards per run. It was another really impressive game for Powell. I think he would have had 100. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know how long that run was, or I believe it was Austin Safarian Jenkins got that long running play negated with the hold. So Powell kind of fits in there with Forte too. It's just the running backs who are playing really well together.
Yeah, it's it was nice to see, and even though the box score didn't show it, Elijah McGuire's numbers weren't all that impressive, but it seemed that for one reason or another, he didn't have as much room to run as the other guys did, but he still found a couple of creases, had a couple of decent runs, and was the guy they went to late in the game to run out the clock. So all in all, like I said, 197 yards rushing all around. I believe 170 something of that was the backs. McCown had a couple of decent runs. So an encouraging sign, man, because you got to be able to run the ball. And I said it previously. That blowing those leads is, to me, it's as much as it's on the defense, it's also on the offense for not being able to chew up some clock and make some plays late in the game. So as they if the offensive line can get a little bit of something going up front, now these leads, if they can get these 10, 12, 14-point leads in the fourth quarter, the offense can help make it, help it stand up by picking up some first downs, because that's something that didn't happen in those previous 3 losses where, they held fourth quarter leads and couldn't hold on.
Yeah, exactly. And we do have a caller. We'll bring him on in a second. Glenn, and what'd you think about that big Powell run too, where everybody, I'm sure, saw it on the highlights, where, this is a Mike zone where like I was just talking about before, where Tomlinson right here is coming up and blocking the Mike linebacker, blocks him. Powell kind of hides behind him. He's kind of like a human shield. If I could just rewind it right here and show everybody, where he's kind of like a human shield for him. He brings all the, 4 defenders in one area, and then cuts back and then runs for, an extra however yards it was. Big run from Powell right here, and just shows how athletic he is, how smart he is. And this is just some plays that we see from Powell on not a daily or gamely basis, but we see these types of plays from Powell a lot, where he's breaking a long run, and this was another really impressive one right here.
Yeah, it's Bilal Powell being Bilal Powell. You watch that play. It's not only does he make that many guys miss. You look at Brian Winters on this play. He comes up a little bit. He comes up empty. He doesn't even really get a body on anybody, and Bilal Powell still manages to make 3 or 4 guys miss. He looks like he's going to go to the outside, cuts it back inside off of Eric Tomlinson's inside hip, and picks up a big gainer. So you can't really say enough about what this guy does.
Yeah, and then he kind of breaks an ankle tackle and then another tackle. Poor kind of this number 21 kind of over pursues him here, where he's supposed to track, like I said, his inside hip or near hip. Doesn't do that, and Powell cuts back for. He actually gets tackled right after this, but I couldn't send it to myself on email because it's too long. And I'm trying to figure out right now, like if you see on these videos, my computer right there, we're actually going to try to fix that. We're actually record with my computer, but some technical difficulties the first time, so we're going to try to fix that. But let's bring on the caller right now. Let me just exit out of this. A lot of stuff going on when you do this. So let me bring on the caller. Let's see if I can unmute him. Unmute audio. Okay. 18563. Okay. Who is this?
Hey, it's Hakeem, Joe.
Hakeem, I do. What is up?
Nothing much, man. Thanks for having me on. I wish I had the video capability to see what you guys were talking about on film there, but maybe next time.
Yeah, like I said, I'm pretty sure that you said you listen almost every single week. So you can obviously go to YouTube. We're going to tweet it out on the JetNation Radio Twitter and also my Twitter as well, where to find these video clips, where to see me and Glenn doing this. So when you see us talking about a Mike zone or a wham or a boss or a split zone, you can see exactly what we're talking about. We're trying to work out some kinks with the video, but it should be fun. So we appreciate you for calling in. Hakeem, you are our first caller on the new format of the show. I would give you an applause, but I don't have any sound effects that are not on Blog Talk. So, but we appreciate it, man.
Yeah, no worries, man. Long-time listener to your show. I have a ton of respect for you and Glenn. I think you guys are excellent co-hosts, and I think you're great for the Jet fans to, kind of have a sounding board to kind of give us the reality check. But I wanted to talk to you guys about three things. I don't know if we could just jump into it, but I want to start with the linebackers, the second-year linebackers, Darren Lee and Jordan Jenkins. Like, Darren Lee has really come on for us. He's going from liability to playmaker. And, to see him grow right before our eyes is pretty impressive. And then we saw Jordan Jenkins break out this Thursday with a 2-sack game and forced fumble. And he's just been so powerful setting the edge. I wanted to get your take.
Yeah, I think Jordan Jenkins, I know for me personally, I've talked to a lot of people about him, from last year up through this season. Mike McCagnon definitely has his share of critics. There are people who don't give him a lot of credit for the drafts he's had because, let's face it, we live in a world where everyone wants the maximum results on day one when guys aren't in the Pro Bowl by week 2 of their rookie season. We write them off as busts and wastes, and why do we pick this guy? And our GM has no idea what he's doing. When he picks Leo, when he picks Jamal Adams, everybody says he doesn't get credit for those because those are easy picks. Pretty sure a lot of people thought it was an easy pick for Eric Mangini. You still got to get it right. There are plenty of easy picks that don't work out. But one of the guys who has worked out from day one, from the day he arrived in camp last year as a rookie, Jordan Jenkins, he's had that starting job from the moment he arrived. He's not a flashy guy. He's not that explosive edge rusher who makes highlight films by getting a ton of sacks, even though he had a couple this week. But he's a guy who just shows up every week and every week does his job. He does it well. He sets that edge. We see him consistently redirecting linebackers. Redirecting running backs, giving the inside guys, Darren Lee, Demario Davis, a chance to pursue the safeties. Basically, he does the work that allows other guys to make plays. There is a lot of value to that. Calvin Pace made a 10-year career out of it. I've argued back and forth with Jets fans who say that, he's a bust because who cares if he redirects, the running back? Because people just want to see stats. They look at stat sheets and they don't see 11 tackles and they don't see 2 sacks. So the guy must suck because, that's the only way to measure a player is through a box score. Darren Lee, night and day. I saw that Pro Football Focus had some of his 3 best career games over the last 3 games. I would say even though the ratings weren't there, I'd say even 4 to 5 games ago, we were starting to see signs that he was coming around. He'd get beat a little bit here, beat a little bit there, but then he'd make a play behind the line of scrimmage or at the line of scrimmage. So seeing a lot of tackles, that are preventing running backs from getting more than a yard or 2. And now these last 3 games, he's just really turned it on. A couple forced fumbles. Could have had an additional sack on that play against Cutler. So as I said earlier in the show to Joe, to me, those 2 guys have been the biggest catalysts in this defense, kind of getting it together. And obviously, this if they continue playing this well, should make life a little bit easier or a lot easier on that secondary and make life a lot harder for opposing quarterbacks.
Yeah, and Lee had what, 2 sacks or no, 1 sack and 2 tackles for loss, and I think Jenkins had 2 sacks and 2 tackles for loss as well, Glenn. So they both played pretty well this game. I think Lee's been proving it the last couple of games. I would say at least the last maybe 3-4 games where he's playing really consistently, filling gaps. He is still having problems in the pass game. getting a little bit too physical with guys on routes, and then he either takes them out of the play, gets off balance, and then they get open. So he's still having some problems there, sometimes in zone when he's actually asked to read something. He kind of either follows the quarterback's eyes too much or just doesn't trust his instincts, and he'll give up passing plays. But in the run game, he's obviously been very consistent where he is filling gaps. He is bouncing off of pulling guards. He is getting around them. He is making open field tackles. He's not over pursuing. He's scraping over top when he has to scrape over top. We're going to bring up a play of him later. Then obviously Jenkins, I think in my personal opinion, he's a little bit quiet this year, but I do understand at the same time he is a third-round draft pick. He's not a veteran. He is only, 24, 25 years old. If I had to guess, I don't know Jordan Jenkins' age off the top of my head. But he's a young player too, and he's a third-round draft pick, so he's going to take some time to develop. And like you said, Calvin Pace is Calvin Pace. If you're going to have a strong side-outside linebacker and he's going to redirect running backs back inside to this defensive line, that has plenty of value if he's going to set the edge for the Jets. And obviously there is some problems with him setting the edge sometimes where he either takes a bad angle. We saw it this game where he took a bad angle on a read option where Shady actually gets it inside on an inside read option, and then he spins DeMario Davis on just an absolutely beautiful spin, and then he cuts it back outside, and Jordan Jenkins is too slow to contain him. But regardless, I think he's going to be a solid run stuffing type of guy. Now, do I expect Jordan Jenkins to ever come out and have 10 sacks in a year? Maybe a one flash year or two, maybe, but I expect him to be a guy who's going to set the edge for the Jets and get 4, 5, 6, 7 sacks, which is fine for a third-round draft pick that he is. So I want him to prove a little bit more. I want him to play more consistently where he shows up because he's been kind of quiet just in the background a lot this year. So hopefully it's a sign of improvement. Hakeem, you kind of talked about it too, but what are your thoughts expanding farther?
Yeah, I just checked on my phone their ages, and Jordan Jenkins just turned 23 in July, and Darren Lee just turned 23 in mid-October. So seeing that gets me super pumped because they're very young, and obviously they're just scratching the surface. So and when I look, watch their interviews, they're like totally bought in to the system and the team first. I really like the way they just kind of go about being a professional. So I respect that. And obviously I know Darren Lee has had his issues, but he's definitely quieted. He's been a lot more quiet since. And I'm really proud of them. I mean, they're stepping up, and this growth. I mean, there's no of course, the correlation between Mo Wilk playing better equals to Darren Lee being able to make more plays. Like obviously, those two are connected. But it's just good to see the defense really just take over and be that strength of the team.
Yeah, no, exactly, and I agree with you. You see the Jets spend all these premium picks on defensive players. Leonard Williams, even though Jordan Jenkins wasn't a premium pick, still a third-round pick is pretty valuable. You see that. You see Lorenzo Malden, who we'll see. When me, Glenn, and Kyle did our top 25, he wasn't in our top 25 on a roster, which we thought was going to be really bad. So we'll see what happens with Lorenzo Malden. But if you can come away and Lee could be, even at this point for what we expected, we're re-axing him maybe to get his playing time reduced. If he could be an average starting linebacker who has a threat of speed off the edge and blitzing and spying, he can figure out in coverage. And I think he will. Me and Glenn have talked about it many times where, listen, this is a guy who's only playing, his third or fourth year of linebacker, went to Ohio State, one of the biggest Division I programs, and started playing linebacker because he was a quarterback and safety in high school. And now he's in the NFL in a second year. It's going to take him some time. And hopefully he does learn how to, cover guys better or put his hand on an outside shoulder on a route, or to, how to get physical, how to angle himself, or how to, play zone coverage. And that takes time. But if those two can be contributors and even average, below anything above average is obviously a plus for the Jets. But that's a big part of this defense rounding out, because you look at the other parts of the defense. Obviously we need secondary a lot and some other things, but you get two young players who could be chips moving forward, and that's obviously a good thing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you guys hit it all over the park, man. Thank you. Yeah, I always appreciate your analysis. So thanks for diving into Darren Lee and Jordan Jenkins for me. My second question I wanted to talk about was the turnovers, man. We're really forcing them this year. And I remember before the season started, I said that, hey, man, I think the Jets can have a positive turnover rating this year. And I remember our good friend Kyle Smith, he jumped on, he said, "Oh, when I heard Hakeem say they could have a positive turn ratio, I basically threw up." Well, I think the Jets right now are +2 in 9 games in. And I don't know if you want to, I'll ship some Listerine to Kyle Smith to help him out with that throw up. But, it's the energy the defense brings that are forcing all these turnovers. And this is what I was really excited about. I knew we were going to make mistakes. I knew that we were going to get into slumps. But when we turned it on, we were going to force a bunch of turnovers. And that's what we're seeing.
Yeah, and I think that stems from, like you said, just being a young and hungry defense who, even if they don't have the most talent in some areas, they're all swarming to the ball. They're all trying their hardest. They're all just like even this game, just the awareness for them to. I think it was actually Screen who kind of alerted Jamal Adams that Nick O'Leary wasn't touched. But they come in, and they do the classic football move of Adams grabs Nick O'Leary first, the second guy in. Comes in and tries to strip the ball, and Marcus May, while Nick O'Leary is kind of trying to push upfield backwards, kind of trying to like squat Jamal Adams, Marcus May has enough smarts to strip the ball. So little stuff like that, energy, passion, flying to the ball. And there was a play, I believe, I forget what game it was, and I forget what announcer called it out, but I think it was the Jaguars game this year, and there was a fumble. I forget by which player. And then they saw the fumble, or they showed the fumble, and then they showed the guys around the ball, and there was like 2 Jaguars players kind of jogging to the ball, and you see 8 Jets players swarming the ball to grab the fumble. So, hustle does that for a team. So I agree with you, and that's a big reason why. And if this team gets better, say if we do get some corners and then the quarterback has to hold on to the ball, you'll see some more strip sacks. If you get some corners who could, maybe squat on a route and then jump it, that'll get some more turnovers. So it's exciting where this team could go. And I think the energy is the main reason why this defense is really playing well, because they do still lack talent at a lot of different positions. So I agree with that. Glenn, quick thoughts, then we have to move on to some other things.
Just that it has been exciting seeing these guys create turnovers, and a lot of it too is, if they're going to win that turnover battle, it's more often than not going to come down to the quarterback. Josh McCown hasn't been perfect, but he's had some games where he does a really good job of protecting the football. And if you keep doing that, on a even semi-consistent basis from the quarterback position, while the defense, as you said, continue to swarm, rip that ball out of there, caught a few breaks. I think 2 or 3 of those turnovers they forced were basically fumbles by the Falcons that, you get a bounce, you get a bounce. I mean, you still got to make a play, but that's more, I'd say that's more of a gaffe from the offense. But you got to give credit where it's due, and this is a young, hungry team. And I'll tell you what, would anybody be surprised if they came away with 3 or 4 interceptions this week? I don't think so.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And even, obviously, like we talked about before, the Jordan Matthews fumble where he's reaching out and hits the ball out with his own arm, that's a little bit sketchy. But still, that stuff happens in a game. The Nick O'Leary play, an old Jets team, honestly, like, look, and this is why we talk about young and hungry. An old Jets team, I'd be like, we just gave up a huge pass, where Nick O'Leary actually had or Jamal Adams actually had outside leverage on Jamal Adams. Jamal Adams had outside leverage on Nick O'Leary. Nick O'Leary's running an out or a corner route. It's kind of a mixture of both, kind of takes a weird angle. He still finds a way to get the outside leverage on Jamal Adams, runs the out route, catches the ball. Previous Jets teams would have been, disappointed. They'd have been defeated. Always gave up a huge catch. And then if he got up, maybe they would have tackled him and been kind of loafing around the field. This team is like, oh crap, now we can make a play here. They strip the ball. So that's a good point, Hakeem. Now, before we let you go, any predictions for the Jets game coming up against the Ryan Fitzpatrick-led Buccaneers?
Man, this matchup is so crazy. Last year I always wondered what it would feel like to be like a defensive player preparing to go up against Fitzpatrick. Like, I always just imagined them just licking their chops. Now we finally get to do it. Oh, man, I bet these Jet defensive players are going to be so hungry to get after him. I think it's going to be another commanding victory by our Jets. I'll just say 30-10. I hope we destroy Fitzpatrick, and I just hope we tear him apart. Definitely 3 picks. I want 3 picks, and I want a fumble at least. But thanks for having me on, guys. If anyone wants to follow me on Twitter, it's @Hakeem Amir. Great show, guys. I can't wait to listen to the rest of it. Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, Hakeem.
Yeah. Now, Hakeem, since you can't listen live on a link, do you want me to just mute you, or what do you want me to do with your call?
Well, right now I'm in the closet, so I have to get out and go back to work. But Jenner's closet, right, and the mop is right next to me.
I'm going to leave that one alone.
Thank you so much. All right, man. I'll take you guys later. Thank you, buddy.
All right.
Take care.
Have a good one, Hakeem. All right. Yeah.
Hakeem, it's 2017. Come on, man. Come on. We're okay with it. It's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, geez. Yeah, we're going to stay away from the hiding inside of the closet comment. But, Glenn, moving on, since it's 8:52 or a little bit hour, 8:49 right now. We only got through our first stud of the game. Let's move on to this, our third stud of the game. Give me your number 2 stud of the game.
Number 2, man, you got to go with Mo. He had a phenomenal game. Again, just disruptive force, looking like the Muhammad Wilkerson of old, looking like the guy who earned his $18 million a year contract and was voted the 51st best player in the NFL by his peers a couple seasons ago. Whatever motivated him or got him going, I don't know, but I don't care. Just want him playing well. You just want to feel like the team didn't flush a bunch of money down the toilet. I do not believe that he went from zero effort to maximum effort in a matter of a few days without something being said to him behind closed doors. Or I don't know if I mentioned to you, but since the Jets were tripping over themselves to praise him for his outstanding effort as he was getting pushed around the field every Sunday, I wondered if because it was the first criticism I saw of him, and I wasn't sure if you caught it, but NFL analyst Brian Baldinger shot out a bunch of game clips, the types of clips that you and I have been analyzing, and basically saying, look, here's Muhammad Wilkerson just laying out flat on the field on contact. This guy doesn't want to play football right now. So whether it was being called out and put under the spotlight nationally, or if the Jets finally decided, hey, we've given this guy 22 weeks of no effort, maybe we should say something now. Whatever it was, it raises a good question, and I don't want to get too far off the topic here, Joe. But I mean, it's not off the topic. It is Mo Wilk who gets my number 2. He had a great game, but I can't help but wonder who gets the blame for the way he's played up until the last couple of weeks, obviously, but for all of last season and the first 5 or 6 games this season, he did nothing. And now, if we're to believe it was because he was hurt, he had these injuries. You have a training staff. You have team doctors. If his injuries were that bad, why are you putting him out there? No player is going to pull himself from a game. That's on the coaches to pull the guy. So you keep putting him out there to get his ass kicked every week. Or was it just him not caring and not giving an effort? Is it Mo's lack of heart? Or is it the coaching staff's lack of willingness to hold him accountable? This team lost close games playing 11 on 10, basically. Mm-hmm. So I don't know who that's on. I don't have the medical reports. I don't know what they're saying. But all I know is they're telling me this guy's hurt, and that's why he was ineffective. Then why is he playing? He wasn't ineffective. He was invisible. So it's frustrating to see that they were losing close games with a guy who was giving zero effort, and the coaching staff, all they could do is keep playing him every snap and saying, man, he's really on the turf right now while the play's going on around him. That's the guy who's giving it all.
Yeah, the guy who would see double teams and who would just fall to the ground because he was scared. But no, and Glenn, and we talked about this last year too. If he is this injured and if his broken leg is still hurting him so much, a guy who's on a big contract to shut him down. So if that was the case, then obviously blame goes to the medical staff and the coaching staff for deciding to keep him out there. But at the same time, I think it was more of him. And I had somebody on Twitter, I'm not going to mention any names because I don't like to do that. I don't know if they listen to the show. I don't want to call people out. But say, oh, well, I'm the guys who told you that, Wilkerson is going to play better after all of his injuries. And I don't want to blame 2 or a year and a half on injuries where during those injuries, or during those year and a half, those whatever 24 or so games, there were some spot games where he would play pretty well or some plays that he would play pretty well. So I asked the guy, I'm like, okay, so one or two of those games, did the injuries just take a week off? where the injuries just decided not to hurt Mo Wilkerson and then come back? Or was it Mo Wilkerson, who might have been a little bit banged up? Yeah, he did have a broken leg. He did have a toe problem, et cetera. But when it's so spotty, when he's playing good one game and then bad the next game, et cetera, during last year, where I would say it was more bad than good, the injuries just didn't take off a week. And I thought that it was more of him. And we see plenty of guys in the NFL by week, 10, 11, 12, 13, every single guy in the NFL is playing with an injury. Or at least I would say 95%. No guy goes through a game of crashing into 300-pound men and tackling each other and goes through the season, with no injuries. So everybody has injuries. I think it's the fact that the coaching staff was kind of afraid to call him out. And then kind of that compiled into an excuse for him. And, it is what it is. Hopefully he plays this hard the rest of the year. And honestly, if he does, I still don't know if they're going to bring him back. The way he played the first year and a half of his contract, do you bring him back if he keeps playing this way? I'm not too sure. That's something that we're going to have to evaluate after the season, Glenn. But my number 2 star of the game, I'm just going to read off some of the stats here because I do have my computer for this, and I do have our notes for the show because prior to – I guess some people's belief, we actually do have notes and a laptop like everybody does. But the rush defense, they held McCoy 12 rushes, 25 yards, which is a little bit over 2 yards per carry. Last week, they held Freeman to 1.9 or something right around there. So really, I think 1.96 or something like that. And I'm going to bring up this play right here. But yeah, 12 rushes, 25 yards, 2.1 average. You saw Davis with 2 tackles for loss. You saw Lee with 2 tackles for loss. You saw Leonard Williams with a tackle and a half for a loss. You saw Adams with a tackle for loss. You saw McClendon with a half tackle for loss. You saw Jordan Jenkins with 2 tackles for loss. Ely with 1 tackle for loss. So 10 total tackles for losses on, I don't know how many run plays, but that's at least, I would say more than half. And not more than half. I would say somewhere right around, I guess, a third. So really, really impressive job by the Jets rushing defense this game. And they've been spotty where we came into the year and we come into, most of the last couple of years saying, the Jets run defense, their interior defensive line. This is what we heard on, NFL Network or the radio and stuff. But they've been struggling a little bit in the run game. Where some games, the last game against the Falcons, the 2 Miami games, they really played well. This game, they played really well. But the other 5 games, it was kind of spotty where you'd see some not some chunk plays, but 5-6 yard plays over and over again being let up on the ground. So, but when you see that you can shut down the run game, you get some pass rush, this is what happens. So this is the play. This is a play right here that Bills, run these types of plays a lot. Counters, powers, zone running plays here. I'm gonna have to figure out how to just keep this on repeat here. But this is a counter tray, and the counter being this first false step right here, and then him cutting back to the play side. The tray part of it comes from the offensive tackle here, the right tackle, and the tight end combo blocking and working to the backside where this tackle is actually supposed to block. Lee right here, he misses the block. But even before that, you're going to see McClendon, Glenn, and this is exactly what we talk about. This is exactly why we're doing the film and we're breaking it down for really like these exact plays. And here you see McClendon has a zero technique, zero being right, heads up over the center. He blows up this play. Well, actually, the center goes to the left, and the right guard tries to seal him inside the play right here. McClendon blows it up. He fights to the backfield, and he actually takes out, I believe 42 is DeMarco, Glenn. He actually pushes so far up the field that he takes DeMarco out of the play. And if you see, DeMarco is actually supposed to block Davis, who's shooting through right here into the C gap, the D gap, actually. The D gap, this is supposed to be DeMarco's guy, and then bam, right there, Davis makes a play. But this is stuff that you don't see on the stat sheet. Right here, if McClendon wasn't to blow up this play and get past the right guard or, move up the field past the right guard, DeMarco would have got to Davis, and then he blocks him. And then, maybe right there, Adams, I believe that's Adams, is right there to make the tackle. But still, that's stuff that doesn't show up on the stat sheet, and that's what we see right there, and that's what we saw a lot this game. So impressive play right there, and impressive outing from the Jets' run defense.
McClendon, we've talked about several times. Underappreciated guy, and I would say as much as we like the way he played last year, he's been much better this year. He consistently, we see him get penetration into opposing backfields. Again, plays like that, you know, runners having to redirect and alter their plans because he's either moving somebody into their path, or he's getting into their path himself. So I always scratch my head when I see Jets fans say, you know, we have to look at cutting this guy. He makes $3 million a year. You know, like, listen, sorry, you got to pay some people. Like, it's the NFL. You can't just you can't have 53 rookies on rookie deals with you know, $140 million in cap space. Getting a guy like McClendon for what he does and what he makes, there's absolutely no reason to let him go, at least right now. I mean, do they revisit that in the offseason and feel like they can make an upgrade? That remains to be seen. But for the last couple of years, he's been a very good player who doesn't get nearly enough credit.
Yeah, I'm gonna bring up another player right here, and like I said, you know what? We are on Blog Talk Radio, but if people really want to, and I think Greg, I don't know how to pronounce his last name. I don't want to give out his last name necessarily on air, but he actually wrote us a review, and he said he likes learning the X's and O's, and he's learned a lot since listening to the show, and this is why we're bringing up the plays. So instead of explaining every play, which we do every show anyway, where we explain all the plays, now we're explaining them, but we're showing it at the same time. It's much easier to see something and understand it than it is for me telling you, okay, well, McClendon, you know, shoots through the A gap and pushes the right guard who's trying to seal him off. You know, interfering with the Marcos, right? Like, it's hard to explain that and really see it in your head. So we just explained it. If you want to go on YouTube, we're going to be on the JetNation channel. So click on JetNation, the channel, and then it's going to be probably labeled JetNation Radio. You'll be able to click it. You'll notice it. We'll tweet that out there, obviously, but I'm going to bring up another play right here, Glenn, in terms of the run defense. And this is, I can't see, sometimes with inside zone, it's either going to be an A or B gap. And if you can see on my screen here, this is the A gap, this is the B gap, this is the C gap. If there's a tight end right here, this would be the D gap, so on, so on. If you have an extra tackle, the E gap, it just moves out between each of the guys. And either an inside zone is either the A gap right here or the B gap. Most of the time it is the A gap. So this kind of looks like an outside zone, but it could be a inside zone, but they're just taking the first steps to make it look like an outside zone to cut back in. But here, this is another play that everybody brought up, and this is Jordan Jenkins, who is a 9 technique right here. He's going to blow up the left tackle. I don't know who is it. I don't think it's Cordy. Is it Cordy Glenn? I don't know if 77. It could not. I'm not a Bills expert, but I don't know if that is Cordy Glenn. It might be, but regardless, he blows up the left tackle. He pushes him back a good, 3 yards, which alters McCoy's, running style, not running style, but his, I guess his direction, and he has to bounce outside, which gives, Darren Lee enough time to get over there and tackle him for a loss, or what about a loss of 2 yards right there. And if you look at first, you could see McCoy taking the handoff, and he's actually looking to the backside of the play because he's going to read it, especially on an inside zone. You're going to read the first guy in the play side gap, which is McClendon right there in the A gap, or as a 1 technique. And he reads him, and he reads the backside. And you see when he stops looking there, that looks like a bad picture for him. So he's going to cut back outside, or bounce the run. He bounces the run, and this is where Lee comes in. Where this is what we've been talking about with Lee, where he's playing better in the run game. Lee from the first couple of weeks right here. This is Incognito, who's one of the best left guards. Incognito eats him up, pancakes Darren Lee, where we were seeing at times in the first couple of weeks where Lee would get hit by a guard and fall on his ass, or, he would get hit by a tight end and get blocked out of a play, get blocked out of a play by, a receiver on a crack block. So, right here, he bounces off of him. He uses athleticism to get around him. He doesn't get eaten up by the blocks. We kind of saw him get, sucked into blocks, gets around him. Gets back inside, makes a tackle, in open field on Shady McCoy right there. And that's just another example of how Lee's been playing better. And this is how, Jordan Jenkins outside of the stat sheet impacts a play. And that's why we're doing this, gun.
Yeah, and absolutely. That's such an encouraging sign, because that's exactly what I was going to say, is that earlier in the year on that play, Darren Lee gets knocked on his ass. Takes, absorbs about him. Beats the blocker eventually and makes a play in the backfield for a loss. Earlier in the year, he probably gets knocked, backwards, or, as I said, he gets knocked on his ass, and it's a big gain. But he's just a different player the last few weeks. We're starting to see him do a lot of the things that you hope a guy does when you take him in the first round. So very encouraging stuff.
Yeah, also another thing that I just kind of thought about Glenn too, and the shows might be a little bit longer than 2 hours. Glenn might have to drop off because if you do know Glenn, he is in England, and Glenn is, I believe it's what time? 2 o'clock in the morning right now, Glenn. So
yeah, 3 minutes after 2, and every now and again I get the stink eye from the wife in the morning because my big mouth wakes her up in the middle of the night while she's trying to sleep. So it's
so we appreciate you, Glenn. We appreciate you for doing what you do. But we're not limited to 2 hours, so we'll see what happens. Some shows might go a little bit later. Some shows might not. Glenn might leave a little bit early. He might not. We'll see. You know, it's a fluid situation. But yeah, here it's obviously, like I said, you see the backside of the player, the cutback lane getting blown up by these three guys where it doesn't look promising. When Shady McCoy is running it, bounces outside, has to alter his route outside or his path outside because of Jordan Jenkins blowing up the left tackle. And then Lee fills in and tackle for loss for what was that, Glenn, about 2-3 yards right there, or maybe a little bit more. So really, really encouraging sign from the Jets run defense right there. And overall, the entire game, like I said, to get, to hold McCoy, who is one of – Glenn, would you agree that he's probably a top 5, maybe top 7 running back in the league right now? I would say right in the top 5, right around that area.
Yeah, absolutely. When he's on his game, he's one of those guys that, at least at this point in his career, he doesn't really look like he's lost much, or as much as you might expect for a guy who's he's 30 or he's pushing 30. I think a lot of people expected a bit of a drop off from him this year, but he's had some big games. He's still extremely elusive. So whether or not he's top 5 or top 10, the bottom line is he's a damn good back, playing behind a very good offensive line, and the Jets defense just absolutely shut him down. Very encouraging, and even more encouraging for the overall effort. From not just the front 7, but the back end of the defense. They had the type of game they had without Morris Claiborne, their best corner on the bench. So who knows what the next few weeks are going to hold. Yeah,
I'm going to try to no, it's not loading my Twitter. It's kind of sketching out because we're using a lot of data or RAM or whatever to bring up these plays and all this stuff. So it actually is a little bit slow. So I can't bring it up on my Twitter, but I was going to show the play where it's an inside zone read option. And I don't know if you remember it, but Shady is running inside. He bounces it back outside, spins the hell out of Demario Davis, and then bounces it back outside on the backside of the play, gets past Jordan Jenkins around the edge and big run. I think that was like the Bills' second drive, or maybe it was their third drive. I forget exactly what it was, but really nice, good running back. So to hold him to 25 yards is obviously really impressive. Glenn, moving on to the number 1 stud of the game. Go ahead.
We've already talked about him. Darren Lee, guy had a phenomenal game. He was disruptive against the pass, against the run, making plays at and behind the line of scrimmage. And he, as I said earlier, each of the last 3 games have been the 3 highest grades he's earned from PFF. And PFF, we've talked about them in the past. I think they're valuable for some aspects and not as valuable for others. But I have read, I know, they're a group that now has a lot of, or not a lot, but several former NFL players and coaches on their staff because they liked what they were doing. So they if nothing else, I view them as kind of a guide. It's not so much a Bible as much as it is a guide to how well guys are playing. And even without them, you don't need a PFF grade to look at Darren Lee and say, wow, he's a much different player the last few weeks. So, yeah, it's nice to slap a number on it because we like that. But at the same time, we've been saying it on this show without needing to look and see what other people are rating him. He's been getting better every week, and it's exciting, man, because we've seen this team miss on enough first-round picks, and if Darren Lee starts coming into his own, then we'll be able to say that the Jets hit on all 3 of their last first-rounders because there's no reason to believe Leo won't be a stud. There's no reason to believe Jamal Adams won't be, at the very least, a very good player. And now Darren Lee looks like he's at least – and again, what determines success with a draft pick? We've seen enough draft picks do absolutely nothing. That if whatever round you're taking in, you got to get some impact guys. But even if you can have a guy who you can plug in as a starter who's going to make some plays for you for 5 or 6 years, that's a successful pick. And I think worst case scenario, the Jets have at least that with all 3 of these guys, but with all 3 also having the potential to be big-time game changers.
Yeah, and I think at this point we're expecting Adams to be a Pro Bowl type of player. Where Leo already is a Pro Bowl type of player. Hopefully Wilkerson bounces back to a Pro Bowl type of player. And then you look at some of the guys on the second level of defense. Demario Davis, for all the crap we gave him when he came back to the Jets, he's been, I would say, a decent linebacker, if not a little bit above average. Run game, he's been playing very, very well. Very, very well. And, the first 2 weeks he was over pursuing, he was reading wrong keys. He was playing not well at all, getting sucked up by, guards kind of like Lee was, but then for whatever reason, he just started playing solid where you don't really notice him on film a lot. You see him a lot like filling gaps and making plays, but you don't notice him, blowing an assignment or blowing a gap he's supposed to fill, or, him being on the backside and over pursuing and then getting a cutback lane to a running back. So he's not really doing that stuff. So it's been really impressive from him. And then Lee, like I said, with Adams and Williams, we're expecting Pro Bowl. Even for what we expected with Lee, if he's even just a average to above average player, the Jets made out well. Maybe not as well as you'd like for a first round draft pick, but 3 years in a row, getting a Pro Bowler, and a capable starter, I'm fine with that. And that's why McCagnon, people are kind of iffy on him, where we can bring up those picks, and even though he fell into his lap, I'm sure if Vernon Golston worked out, then it would have fell into the Jets' lap too. But you still have to make the pick, and even with Adams and Leo, there's still 5 other teams that skipped on these guys. So why didn't those teams take him? So, but go ahead.
The biggest thing to me with Leo is that, as much as I like him and as good of a player as he is, he was the one thing they didn't need. That was the one position that didn't need to be addressed. Yeah. And people say, "Oh, it was such an easy pick." That was an easy pick. This team that hasn't been able to score touchdowns for 40 years now, and Kevin White, who has turned out to be an injury guy, but no one knew it at the time. There were no major red flags for injuries with Kevin White. There were tons of people that said Kevin White should have been the pick for the Jets. He was going to be that vertical threat they've been missing for so many years, game-changing receiver, yada, yada, yada. They don't need a D lineman. Why are they going D-line? Leonard Williams turns out to be a good player, and all these same idiots who were saying what a stupid pick it was at the time, now they're all going, that was an easy pick. He doesn't get credit for that. That was too easy. Like I said earlier, like you just said, like Vernon Golston was an easy pick for Eric Mangini. Everyone's an easy pick in the top 10. That's why if you don't succeed, you're a bust, because everyone expects you to succeed in that spot. Not everybody does. So it's starting to look more 3 for 3. Not they like a guy, whether it's a GM or a coach. If they like him, they get a pass for everything. If they don't like him, they don't give him credit for anything. Everything is lucky. You don't like Todd Bowles and the Jets won a few games in a row? Well, they beat a bunch of bad teams. You don't like Todd Bowles and they beat a good team? That good team played bad that day. You don't like Mike McCagnon and he picks a bunch of good players? Those were easy picks.
Yeah.
It's just everyone decides what, they decide on their narrative early on, and then nobody's willing to budge and say, you know what? I was wrong about this guy. He picked some damn good players. I still, to this day, have people telling me that John Idzik and Mike McCagnon have a similar draft record. Dead serious, like with a straight face. Oh, yeah, he's no better than John Idzik. They're the same. Smoking crack.
Yeah, even I know Carpenter's been a little bit disappointing this year, but the Carpenter pickup was good. Obviously, the Davis pickup has been good to this point. Robbie Anderson pickup, undrafted free agent, has been very good. So there's
Austin Safarian-Jenkins.
Coney Ely. So there's plenty of moves, and this is why I'm kind of, I'm on both sides of the fence. I'm kind of 50-50 on McCagnon, where I could see the mistakes he's made, the Hackenberg pick, but I can also see the good moves he made, like the Robbie Anderson, et cetera. So to kill him and to say that he's a terrible GM and he's like Idzik is a joke, but you have to be able to, just like you said, Glenn, where you have to be able to admit when you're wrong. And just like, how many times, and I wasn't a big fan of the Donahue pick, but I wasn't a big fan of the Elijah McGuire pick. He came out, he balled out, and I came on here multiple times. I said, you know what, I'm probably wrong about this guy, and he looks like he's going to be a pretty good player. You have to be able to admit when you're wrong to get credit in anything. If you're one of those guys who's never, Elijah McGuire, I know he hasn't done much over the last couple of weeks. He's got let's say 1,200 yards next year. Let's just say, hypothetically, there's going to still be people, the offensive line opened up too many holes and, guys missed too many tackles. I'm right. He's still a bad player. Like, people will never admit they're wrong. And that's a problem with a lot of Jets fans. So admit when you're wrong. You sound a lot smarter. Actually, you're admitting when you're wrong, and you sound smarter. It just is what it is. Glenn, for my number one stud of the game, I'm going to Jets pass rush. DeMar Davis had a sack. Darren Lee had a sack. Leo McClendon had half a sack. Wilkerson had a sack. Jenkins had 2 sacks. Ely had a sack. 7 sacks total. The Jets had 11 sacks in their first 8 games. So this game, they were super, super impressive. And right here, just watch this play. So this is I think Brian Boldinger pointed this out. I watched some of his stuff when I see people retweeting the crap out of it, but you can see here Leonard Williams kind of, goes outside or starts outside of Incognito. And then when Incognito punches, or actually Leonard Williams is actually very patient right here. Incognito punches, he double swipes him, double swipe, both hands. He's swiping away his arms. It's pretty simple terminology. Double swipes him and then gets into the backfield, forces him to step up in the pocket. And this is where you see Mo Wilkerson, who is on the other side right here. And he is right here as a, he's a 5 tech right here. So he's coming in, he's working on the right guard. He bull rushes them because for whatever reason, you see this a lot in the NFL, the hug technique, or where they try to kind of get their hands onto the shoulder pads or kind of try to hug them wide, which if you're going to hug technique, you better be pretty freaking strong because you're driving all legs and you don't have a lot of power going through your torso and your arms. So right here, Wilkerson gets into his chest, pushes them back, gets into a position to sack Tyrod Taylor, disengages pretty easy. I think that's Vlad Dukas. So, take it for what it's worth. It's Vlad Dukas, but still, you see Leonard Williams right here, double swipe Richie Incognito, make him almost, fall forward, where Richie Incognito actually is leaning a little bit too forward. He could have a little bit better of a base. I think he's a little bit too wide right there, but, nice move regardless from Leonard Williams. He makes him, or Tyrod Taylor step right up into a Muhammad Wilkerson sack. So nice play from the defense right there. And we saw this a lot this game. And you saw the rushers too, kind of going on an outside arc to the quarterback, and that's contain rushing. Where a lot of guys versus a lot of quarterbacks. Let's say like if you're playing Peyton Manning, you can rush from the inside of let me pause right here, or a little bit back. So whoever this is, I can't see the number because it's blurry right now, but if he can rush inside versus a guy like Peyton Manning because he's not a scrambling quarterback. Where if you did that versus Tyrod, he sees that and he has an open lane to run around. So when you're rushing, you're rushing the outside shoulder of the tackles or the tight end, whoever it is, to contain him, because then they can't run outside the pocket. So, or makes them harder to at least get outside the pocket when you're contain rushing. So we saw that a lot, and we saw a lot of these defensive tackles. And Muhammad, at least I consider them defensive tackles. Muhammad Wilkerson and Leonard Williams making a lot of plays, and that's what we see on this play here, Glenn.
Yeah, just great job all around from the front 7. I think that might have been Jordan Jenkins rushing from the outside there that we weren't sure about. And he does a nice job.
Yeah, it's Jenkins.
Yeah, so Jordan Jenkins does a nice job there tying up his blocker and just disruptive all around up front. I mean, that's part of what made this game so much fun to watch, is that even this season when they've gotten back to there, and it seemed like every single play Tyrod Taylor had to make a decision, and he had to make one quickly or he was going to get swallowed up. And again, that type of performance every week. I'm not here to say the Jets from here on out, but just showing some flat. And again, it all goes back to what we said earlier. It's Mo Wilk. When you have 2 guys that the defensive coordinators or offensive coordinators have to game plan for, it makes it life that much more difficult. You got to decide who's not going to get doubled, or are you going to double both guys, and that gives you one less receiver. Maybe you send an extra tight end out there to work as a blocker, and now that's one less guy you have going out on a route. Makes life a little bit easier on the secondary without having a blitz. So Mo Wilkerson's resurgence, even though it's only a couple, 3 weeks old now, and we'll see if it continues. I think it will. I think, the Jets maybe sat him down and explained how much money he stood to lose if he kept just taking plays off. So, he's reinvigorated. He's playing great. He's the player that, that you and I and so many Jets fans raved about when they got him re-signed, and we were all thrilled about that. So nice to see him doing what he's doing. And to me, that's what allows everything else to happen up front, because now Leo's not getting doubled, and that means, McClendon, everyone's going to have more room to make plays because teams have to pay attention to another rusher.
Yeah, and Glenn, even and I don't want to spend too much longer on this play because I actually have another play I want to bring up. And I think we have about 12 plays that I can bring up. Maybe we won't spend as long on some of them, but here, like I said, you see the just absolutely beautiful patience and double swipe move from Leonard Williams on Richie Incognito. But when he rushes to sack Tyrod right here. In the past, Wilkerson, for a lot of plays, especially against the Patriots game, I think it stood out the most. Where here, you see him driving his feet, you see him bull rushing to try to get to the quarterback. A couple of weeks ago, right here, he gets locked up. He doesn't drive his feet. He doesn't get back, and instead, he's when Leonard Williams forces Tyrod to step up, Mo Wilkerson would be, let me rewind it, right. So he starts his bull rush right here. So he'd be right about here, and he would stop his rush. Leonard Williams would come up. He'd step up in the pocket, maybe find a guy. But the fact that he's driving his guy back in his in position, just by his hand and diving at the ankles to make this sack, and that's like a perfect example right there of how his effort is really helping the Jets right there. And then let me bring up another play here, and this is our boy. Let me just a lot of clicking around here. And this is just another one, Glenn, of I think this is Leonard Williams and Steve McClendon sack. And right here again, this is another nice move by Leonard Williams where he's actually getting, Incognito because he's rushing, outside or far outside of his outside shoulder, of Incognito's outside shoulder. He actually gets him to open his hips up, outside right there. And then when he opens his hips up outside, Leonard Williams is taking his inside arm, extending it, showing some really good power. And throwing it into Richie Incognito's inside shoulder, extending it, pushing him back, controlling him by that shoulder because he's off balance, pushing into Tyrod's pocket, grabs him, and then McClendon is also here on this play because he gets inside of the right guard's pad because he's actually, it's Vlad Ducati standing a little bit high, gets under his pads, and look, he's just, McClendon right there just driving Vlad Ducat's back, how many, 5, almost 6 yards back into the backfield. So he gets the half sack on that. So really impressive play there. And like I said, we saw this all game. So that's just my, my second and last play of the Jets, defensive line pass rush.
Yeah. Again, it was a complete team effort. It was nice to see everybody, or just about everybody come away with a play, whether it was a game-changing play, a drive-stopping play, or a play setting up second and long, third and long. It just, keeps guys hungry, keeps guys motivated. And again, if this keeps up, it's way too early to say, but I think I think we both know that the biggest issue this season has been not getting to the quarterback and not being able to maintain possession with a lead. It's all hypothetical. None of it really matters now because it didn't happen. But if they could have run the ball with a little bit more authority, a bit more effectively in those 3 games where they had a fourth quarter lead, they could be sitting on 2-3 losses right now, and in prime position to be in the postseason. Now, what happens from here on out? They do have some tough games left on the schedule, but if you get consistent pressure, you can you can slow any quarterback down. So again, am I expecting 7 sacks a week? No, but am I expecting consistent pressure with a couple of Pro Bowl first rounders on that D line going all out? Absolutely. And if they're not finding ways to get pressure, then that's shame on them, because how many first round picks do you need to get to the quarterback?
Yeah, exactly. And you want to see some rush from these guys. And even though we do say 3-4. Defensive ends, and don't just think that in any scheme that a 3-4 defensive front is going to be all two gapping, because there are some plays where you're going to try to penetrate up the field and you're not going to two gap. You're going to try to get to the quarterback, not just hold blocks for the linebackers, outside linebackers. So regardless, when you're getting paid, what is it, $17-18 million for Mo, when you're as highly touted as a guy as Leonard Williams is, you want to see some sacks. What was it, through the first 7 weeks, Glenn? 7, I think this is the first, 7 weeks that the Jets didn't have a defensive line sack. And regardless of what scheme you're in, that's not good enough. I don't care what anybody says.
I said it before. You can say all you want that a guy's doing a nice job of occupying blockers. $18 million to occupy blockers. You pay a guy $18 million to ragdoll blockers and get to the quarterback.
Yeah, Yeah, no, exactly. So, Glenn, let's move on to it's 9:25. So let's get on to our duds of the game here. Very long session of this, but give me your number 3 dud.
You know what, Joe? They played so well. I'm only giving you 2. I couldn't pick 3 guys I didn't like in this game.
I could.
I honestly couldn't.
I could do it, Glenn. Well, I'm gonna actually go ahead with yours. Your number 2 is probably gonna be my number 3. Then I would guess.
No, my number 2, Justin Burris. You know, he got beat early on an inside route. He's a guy who's got to step up and make some plays. You know, we know he started the season as a starter that lasted about 10 minutes. Then he disappeared for a few weeks, exclusively playing special teams. But to his credit, after that touchdown catch, I don't remember seeing him get beat off. I don't remember seeing him get beat after that. Not on any big plays anyway. And he did come up with a big tackle and a forced fumble later in the game. So a little bit of retribution, but or redemption rather. So slow start, but picked up and played well after that. But again, guys played so well in this game. It was tough for me to pick somebody.
Yeah, he gets my number 3, Glenn. He did only get beat for a couple of shorter type plays in the passing game, so he's getting my number 3 anyway. But this play right here, where you see the it's a 3 by it's Zay Jones. It's a 3-by-1 set, and he's on the 1 set side, reduced split, and he just runs a post route, and he kind of hesitates at the top and kind of jabs outside, and Burris reacts to that and kind of moves his own body outside towards the sideline. And then he gets beat inside for the easy touchdown. And on the backside too, if you actually look at it, this is the 3 by side, or the 3-by-1. This is the 3 in that 3-by-1. And the Bills are actually running a wolf type look, where it's a it's a high-low read, and a wolf is usually from the outside. This outside guy would run a out route right there, and then this inside guy, which is I believe this is a slot. I think this, I don't know, I'm not sure if this is a tight end or not, but this is we'll call this the outside slot for now. Like I said, he would run the 10-yard or so, depending on the team and how far they want to make their reads. 10-yard out. This guy over here would run a deeper corner route, and then it's a high-low read. You're trying to stretch out the guy on the sideline right there. So this is what happens here, but instead this outside guy actually runs a whip route. When he's running this whip route, Jamal Adams is staring at him, where the Jets are actually in a cover 3 look, where if you see, Burris is deep, what is that? The boundary side third, and then Adams has the middle third, and then this guy right over here is I don't even know what corner that is right now, Glenn. We will get better picture right here, but this corner towards the bottom of your screen is in the field side third, and Adams is actually looking at this guy who's coming in on the whip route for a little bit too long. So Adams, you'd like to see him play a little bit more towards the center of the field right here, and then he'd be able to react to this post route right here and maybe make a play on the ball. But instead, he's staring at these guys over here on this wolf concept. So Adams gets a little bit lost there, and I'm not sure if this was, this could be cover 3, which I think it is, or it could be quarter half, which 1/4 on these 2 guys, and then he would have his own side of the field right here. But I still think it's cover 3, where he's going to go back here. He's supposed to be back here, and then I think this is Roberts is supposed to be back here, or it could be screen. No, it is Roberts, because screen, I believe, is somewhere. I know he's somewhere right around there. But Adams kind of messes up his zone right here too, where you'd like to see him be savvy. And if he was a little bit more savvy, as soon as this guy on the whip route from the outside started to stop and turn back to the outside near the sideline, he would start to drift back more into his zone. Or even before that, you want to see him drift into or be in his zone a little bit more, and then react to the guy's route if he has to. You shouldn't kind of try to guess what they're going to do. You want to see it, especially when you're responsible for the deep third right here. So I don't know if I explained that the best, but it's a new thing to explain it on video, Glenn. But yeah, that was Burris's mess up right there. That was his big play of the game. And Adams too, you can put a little bit of blame on him, where he's playing really solid in the run game, but you'd still like to see some better instincts right here, where he's drifting too far to the field side third that Roberts or whoever that corner is on the bottom of the screen already has. So yeah, but give me your number 1 then, I guess.
Yeah, and that is a nice shot from Zay Jones there, selling that outside route. he was able to cut back to the inside quickly enough that Burris wasn't able to recover. So again, blunder for Burris. He did play what he played all right after that. And I think anyone who listens to us regularly knows that we're both both raved about Burris for a little while now. The guy, but you have to kind of take it with a grain of salt that he played well after that, because let's face it, the Bills receivers are not very good at all. This isn't Atlanta, and he wasn't matched up on Julio Jones for the rest of the game. So they have some solid hands guys, but they don't have a lot of guys who can beat you deep, which is where Burris, as we saw in camp quite a bit, that's where he struggled. So it's again, grain of salt, not a great game for him, but he did bounce back and play well after that. My number one guy, I think I counted 4 or 5 hits on Josh McCown from guys that Kelvin Beachum was blocking. Kelvin Beachum got beat quite a bit at left tackle. A guy who's really, to me, I've said he's kind of, we've seen some steady play out of him after a really slow start to the season, and he's played better, but this week.
Yeah, no, exactly, Glenn. And he's been kind of spotty this season. I think you've been a little bit higher on him than I've personally been. But yeah, there was a couple plays, and there's one play that's in particular points out to me, and I would bring this up on Twitter, but for whatever reason, it's a little bit slow. I'm going to try to figure that out for next week. But the play where Austin Seferian-Jenkins' touchdown was taken back, Beachum actually sets way too far outside. If anything, if you had to choose, you want to give the outside rusher the edge or the outside, so that maybe then the quarterback can step up. When you give them your inside, then it's an easier path. You don't have to run as far to get to the quarterback, and it gives you a direct path to them. So he gets beat after setting way too far outside. Nasty spin move. I think it was Jerry Hughes. McCown steps up, gets hit, but then he throws a would-be touchdown to McCown, or not to McCown, to Austin Seferian-Jenkins. It was taken back. But Glenn, my number 2 dud right here. Let me bring this up, and I think this is this is Roberts right here. And this is what I kind of talk about with Roberts. Roberts, if you look, he's right here, and he's playing a lot of off and soft, where he's not too off right here, but he always starts backpedaling too early, where you want to see him kind of get physical contact with him, even just get this inside arm or his left arm on the outside shoulder pad, so he could kind of feel where he's going and play with his instincts. But it's hard to kind of feel where a guy is going if you don't have hands on him at all. He plays far off of him, and then he opens up his hips way too early, which I do not like. He should start backpedaling a little bit more. Instead, he opens his hips. He's starting to run deep. When he's running deep, when you're running like this, Glenn, your hips are open inside, and then you turn them to run, vertically. This receiver right here has any out breaking route or any break back to the quarterback, any curl, any comeback, any out route, any whatever it may be. Roberts is giving him this, and this is what I don't like. I believe this play was on 3rd and 7 or so. So you want to play the sticks, and if he runs after the sticks, then you kind of play him there. But he's playing really soft coverage right here, where he's giving him, like I said, any type of outbreaking or cut back to the quarterback type of route, curl, etc. So, or stop, whatever it may be. So a little bit disappointing in Roberts. And this is just a guy in general, Glenn, who I think he's been okay. But people were kind of saying before the season, he might be the Jets' best corner. He might be their number 1. He might be their number 2. But this is a guy who, on a good team, maybe he's your 4th or 5th. Maybe he sees 10 snaps a game. But to see him playing consistent, like last week, he played like 65 out of 67 snaps. He's just not a good enough corner to be doing that. So he gets my number 2, and we saw him. If there were passes completed, it was usually Roberts and Screen who are playing, off and soft, just like this example that I'm playing on the screen right now, where they're giving these guys these shorter type of routes. And this wasn't, I can understand if this was in the 4th quarter, but to be doing this, whatever this point was, the 2nd quarter or right around there, when they're still in the game, you're giving them a first down right here, and it just is what it is.
Yeah, we've seen that so much from Todd Bowles since getting here. That part of me wonders if he's willing to concede the short stuff to avoid giving up the big play, similar to what Bill Belichick and the Patriots do. How many times have we seen that team, finish sort of middle of the pack or worse in yards allowed, but they're in the top 5 in points allowed because they they clamp down inside the 20 and hold you to field goals. We've seen it so much now where these corners bail immediately, like right on the snap, they bail and give huge cushions. So it's either Todd Bowles doesn't think his corner is very good, or Todd Bowles is happy to say, back off, give up the short stuff, clamp down, and and then we'll defend them on the short field. I'm not in that locker room. We're not in there. We have no idea. I'm not going to pretend I do. But on plays like that, he clearly just gets beat on the, once that receiver, stops on a dime and comes back, he's completely lost, and he's able to, he gives up a ton of separation. But a lot of that is because of that early start. And I don't know if it's coached or if it's just Roberts not having enough faith in himself to be able to cover deep ball that he's bailing and giving up way too much ground early on.
Yeah, like here you can see when he flips and starts to run vertically. Like I said, any comeback, curl, stop, outbreaking route, corner, whatever it may be, he's just giving it to him. So I'm not a big fan of that. And if anybody's wondering, this is a pull concept. We're going to have the inside guy, which is the tight end right here, run vertically, and then this outside receiver is going to run the stop route, or at least I call that a stop route. Obviously, there's different terminology. A lot of people use different terminology, but that's a stop route in my opinion. And this is a vertical stretch play where you're stretching whatever zone this is, whatever cover it may be, cover 4, cover 3, cover 2. You're stretching it out, but you're stretching it out because these guys are running down the field vertically. So it's a vertical stretch play. Pull is what it's called when you get a vertical route from the inside guy. It could even be a post, whatever it may be, and then a stop route from the outside guy, curl. It could be a comeback. So we see that there. And then Glenn, my number 1 is going to be Buster Screen. We saw the one play where he's about to be burned on an out and up. But when he's about to get burned on the out and up, I'm pretty sure it was intentional where he kicked out Zay Jones' leg. At least it looked like it because he kind of swings his leg out outwards.
That was intentional.
Yeah. And I put it up, and I would bring it up now. I didn't put it on, but yeah, he gets beat because he runs really far outside, and he's trying to sprint towards the sideline, and then Zay Jones cuts back up. And then when Zay Jones cut back up, he kind of swings his leg around and kicks Zay Jones. Everybody thought it was a really big injury, but by chance it wasn't. And then Zay Jones came back a little bit, or a couple of plays later, I believe maybe it was the next drive. But yeah, that was a dirty play by him, at least in my opinion. And he got beat on a lot of shorter type routes too, out routes, whatever it may be. So Screen gets my number 1. I'm just not a big fan. I think he's a guy who's definitely gone after this year.
Yeah, and you have to wonder, again, Todd Bowles and his veterans, we know, but if they don't feel like they have a better option on the roster, that's a bad. They're the guys they have are not ready. You kind of understand because he's a long-term project, 6th-round draft pick. As much as we'd like to see him in there, because let's face it, you're not going to do a lot worse than Buster Screen at this point. And that's kind of the reason why I prefer Burris right now. At least Burris has some room to grow. He's still in year 2, early, middle year 2, whereas Buster Screen's been doing this a while, and we know he's not very good. So why not give Burris a shot? Getting beat. Burris is getting beat left and right. Screen is getting beat left and right. Rather give Burris a shot to grow and improve and hopefully upgrade at the position.
Yeah, exactly. And even if you have to play Roberts on the inside and you give Burris a little bit more run on the outside, but at the same time, the Jets are winning games. And, if they won that Dolphins game or the second Dolphins game in Miami, they would have been the 6th seed right now. So a Jets team who is actually, obviously they probably have to go, maybe 5-2 over the last 7 games, get to 9-7, maybe get into the playoffs, which obviously is, probably not realistic with some good, teams coming up with the Panthers with their really good defense, with the Saints with their, really good offense, and then somewhat surprising, a really good defense. I think that's on part because of Marshawn Lattimore, who's playing really, really, really well right now. So they're a scary team, and then we have New England again coming up. So we'll see if they can do that. I doubt it, but, honestly, when we started to win, like when we won those 3 in a row, I was like, okay, I want the Jets to really get, to 5 games because Bart Scott bet his Ferrari or whatever it was for Chris Canty's Bentley. I brought that up before, so I would like to see Bart Scott win something for having so much faith in the Jets. So, maybe this is a team who finishes 7, 9, 8, and 8 and really surprises people. And regardless of the draft pick, with a team this young, with the average age is what, Glenn? You put out that article right around like 25 and a half years old or something like that. Young team to be doing this, to be blowing teams out. They blew out the Dolphins. They blew out the Bills. This should have been a 7-37 game, but they gave up some chunk yards, whatever, at the end, playing prevent defense. So whatever it is, they blew out the Bills. They dominated them all facets. They dominated the Dolphins. And then you see them, get up 14 points on the Patriots. You see them get up at halftime on the Falcons, who are underperforming, but still, you see them score 21 points against the Dolphins. In that point in the year, they haven't allowed 20 points or more than 20 points in an entire game. So this team is young. It's exciting. They have a lot of room to grow, and for them to be this young and doing this already, really, really, really impressive for them. So, Glenn, moving on to our positives from the offense. Anything you want to point out from that? We'll kind of try to move through these faster. I don't know how much longer Glenn has, or Glenn's wife will allow him on, so I don't want to run too far past that. At least maybe we'll try to push it a little bit, but we'll see. So let's move on through these positives and negatives of the offense and defense, etc. But positives, offense, go ahead.
Much reason to expand. As I said earlier, the best thing about it was the run game. I want to say they ran it 37 times to 20 passes. So they were beating them up, ground and pound. It was kind of reminiscent when you talk about the domination of the defense and the great running game. It was kind of like the 2009-2010 team, where they just beat a team in a submission, bullied them on the ground, and didn't allow any big plays, again, till late in the game to give up some points. But that I feel like that's the most dominant game we've seen since Todd Bowles has been here. I mean, in all honesty, can you remember a game where they just beat a team senseless for 3.5 quarters until giving up a couple late scores?
Maybe the Dolphins game earlier in the year, but that's about it.
Yeah, but even that, like you said, they were up, 37-7 at one point, 34-7. So
yeah,
maybe the best game we've seen out of them under Todd Bowles. And reminiscent, reminded me of that Rex Ryan's first game with the Jets, where they almost pitched a shutout against Houston. They gave up a late touchdown to make it whatever it was, 24-7. I forget what the Jets put up, but it was just a game where you're like, wow, this team just came out and knocked the crap out of this team, lined up across from them and beat them up. And that's the first time we've seen that from a Todd Bowles team. So, tons of credit to Steve Marshall, the offensive line coach, and for getting his guys up. And, they stuck with the run. We talked last week about how they bailed on the run, and Matt Forte complained about it. But as we said, that was justified. When you're averaging 1.2 yards a carry, and every third down is a 3rd and 8, it's time to bail because you got to get something going. This week they were doing enough early on to stick with it, and it paid off in the long run.
Yeah, no, exactly. And yeah, I'll probably agree that this is the biggest blowout of the year. Or I definitely agree, because from all facets, and especially versus the Bulls team before this game, Glenn, what were they? 5-2, 6-2, dominating teams, were number 3 in yards per carry allowed. So, yeah. They were really, super impressive this game to beat a team who had been impressive as the Bills were this year. So blow them out. Even the Dolphins game, okay, it's Jay Cutler. It's not too impressive. But they did what they did. Glenn, can you see my screen right now?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So it didn't highlight for whatever reason. I don't know why it's not highlighting. But one of my other positives, I'm going to go with McCown. 14 for 20, 140 yards passing, 106 quarterback rating. Nothing too impressive, but look at his efficiency. I think Rich Cimini pointed this out this week that he has 100 passer rating or over in 6 of 9 starts. There's only one quarterback in the entire NFL who has one more of those type of games, the 100 or above passer rating. That's Alex Smith, who's having what some consider a MVP type candidate season here. So McCown has been really, really efficient in this play right here, Glenn. I'm not going to play for too long, but here you see the pocket collapse actually because what's his face? I think it's Quale gets blown back into the pocket. Look how far he gets moved back here. So he gets moved back, and I think Carpenter actually on the inside gets moved a little bit back into the pocket. But McCown scrambles back, and the Jets are running a mesh, and you can see the mesh where 2 guys are crossing over the middle, where that's Robbie Anderson and that's Kirsch, where they cross right there. So that's a mesh concept. That's what they call a mesh concept. But then you have some other routes tied into there, which I'm not going to go over all of it because you're not film centric here, but a little bit more now. but he scrambles out. And then when you see it, it's kind of hard. Like I said, we're going to get the video quality improved in the next couple of weeks. But this safety that's near Robbie Anderson, I think he's in cover one. They're in cover one. The safety is here playing his own coverage. And McCown actually flips his shoulders like he's about to throw, and that gets the safety to react and go back into his zone because he thinks he's going to throw the ball. McCown knows he's not going to throw the ball. This is savvy stuff that you see on film. So he flips his shoulders right there, and that's when you see the defensive back, go back inside. He thinks he's going to throw it to somebody either behind him or to Robbie Anderson, whatever it may be, probably behind him because he's turning his shoulders outside. Flips his shoulder there, keeps him backpedaling, looking like he's about to throw the ball, and then he sprints in. He gives himself enough room where, as if he just started sprinting to the sideline here, didn't open up his shoulders, didn't get this defensive back, who I'm highlighting, circling right there. If he doesn't get him to jump back, he meets him at the goal line. He probably doesn't get a touchdown right there. So really, really, this is the type of stuff you see McCown do, on a weekly basis. Then there's plays where obviously he either misses a throw, he misses a guy open, he throws a really bad ball, whatever it may be. But this is a really nice play from him here.
Yeah, and listen, what they've gotten from him all year, even with the loss last week, if they had lost this game against the Bills, I know I had said, look at, it's time for quarterback change if you lose this game to Buffalo. But at the same time, you can't really, had they lost, you couldn't really fault Todd Bowles if he didn't bench him because he's clearly not the problem. When this team does lose, it's not on him. It's, again, people make up their minds. Everyone decided early, this guy sucks. So anytime he does something right, I'm going to say the defense sucks. When he does something wrong, I'm going to say it's on him. So, there are those Jets fans out there that every time he throws a pick, they say he's Ryan Fitzpatrick. And every time he throws a touchdown, they say the defense made a bad play. So he's the bottom line that, the numbers don't lie. You don't accidentally complete 70% of your passes in the NFL. You know what I mean? And it's not he is, last time I looked, and I'm sure there hasn't been much change, he's kind of middle of the pack in yards per attempt. So it's not like he's dinking and dunking and completing a bunch of 4-yard passes. We're seeing him connect on deep balls down the field. And he played well in this game. Not statistically, not his best game, but in terms of yardage, didn't put up a lot of yards, but didn't have a lot of attempts, 20 attempts, because the Jets just churned it out on the ground with 37 rush attempts. If I'm going off memory there, I think it was 37 run plays. So you can't really criticize the guy, and tip your cap to the veteran who's doing a really nice job with a young team around him.
Yeah, and here on this play, you see 3 wide receivers to the field side being the bigger side of the hash because the ball is over here. The side with the more field or the more yardage is the field side. If this is the boundary side right here because it's the shorter part of the field. And right here, this is where you see the bad McCown. And I don't know if you can see this great because, like I said, it is a phone video. But the Jets are running a sail concept where a sail concept is where they end their routes. You have this is actually a 7-yard read, but it's usually a 5, a 15-yard read, which is, like I said, these are a little bit deeper. So this is like a 7, almost a 20, but it's really supposed to be a 15. And then a vertical. So you're going high to low. So you're reading him, you're reading him, you're reading him. But McCown here, which is frustrating on this, like I said, sail. Right here, you see this corner squatting right here. He can still make a play on. I believe this is Jermaine Kearse's corner route. Yeah, it's a corner route. So a sail usually has a corner or a deep crossing route to cross the field. Then you have a vertical route right here, and then either for the running back or receiver crossing, or even like a tight end right here, they leak out into the flats or for a shorter route. This time it's on a whip, so he whips back and he's a short yard read. So usually you have like I said, a 3-level read, deep, intermediate, short, and instead of throwing it to Hansen here on the whip, he throws it to Jermaine Kearse on the corner route, and then it should be picked off right here, as you see. Like I just played it, and right here he should throw it to obviously Hansen, who's wide open on the whip, and he easily could have got a first down. So this is the bad McCown you see, Glenn, and it's what you get. He's not Peyton Manning, he's not Tom Brady, he's not one of these top tier quarterbacks, but overall he's been playing very, very well.
Yeah, and, let's face it, the way I see it is, and I've said this before, I know we enjoy watching film and picking out plays here and there, guys doing things well, guys doing things poorly, but you run 65 plays in a game, you're going to do some things wrong. There's no such thing as the perfect game where every guy makes the right read and the right throw on every play, but you just want a guy who does it frequently enough that you're not dealing with having a guy like a Mark Sanchez under center. Do enough things right that when you do something wrong, it's not going to kill you. And that's kind of where they are right now with Josh McCown. He's doing like I said, you don't complete 70% by accident. He's doing enough on the deep balls to make a difference, to keep defenses honest. I'd like a little bit off topic. I'd like to see him stretch it out a little more with Austin Sperry and Jenkins, as well as he's playing. It seems like everything seems like with the exception of the odd red zone throw, from maybe 17, 18 yards out, feels like everything he's catching is 10 yards and in. And he's athletic enough and big enough that I'd like to see them try to expose some safeties and send him up the seam to try to make some big plays down the field.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that, Glenn, where we want to see him attack the seam more, some more vertical routes, post routes, whatever it may be. They use him on snags and out routes and shorter crossing routes and drive routes, that type of stuff, where you're not really seeing him getting down the field. And, we'd like to see that. This game he was only targeted, I think he was targeted 2 times and had 2 catches. So I would like to see him get more attempts to catch the ball, because he has been really productive. But like I said, on this play, long read, intermediate read, short read, usually supposed to be generic. It's 5, 15, 25 near the sideline. But obviously there's some, you're not going to just stick to, okay, we're running a sail, okay, we're running the exact play. You obviously have some different wrinkles in there, et cetera. So that's a sail play or a sail concept, and he makes the wrong read there. But moving on to another positive from the offense, Glenn, was Robbie Anderson. What do you think about Robbie Anderson's game? He only had 4 catches for like 40 yards, but he has weekly, or at least like the last couple of weeks, I think the last 3 weeks, where he has, he just burns a guy on a 9 route and just beats him for a touchdown. So another week of Robbie Anderson getting a touchdown.
Yeah, and we've talked about it, a million times, and it looks like the guy finally has a quarterback who can get him the ball. Consistently enough. Again, as I said earlier, not perfect. He's not going to drop it in the basket every single time and hit him in stride, but he's putting Robbie Anderson in position to make plays, and that was exactly what this team needed after the way they've played the last few weeks. They had to come out. They needed a score early in that second half to kind of, keep their foot on the gas and not come out and have another 3 and out. So I liked the call going to Robbie. I actually said it at the half. I said, let's come out here and let's just go to Robbie Anderson deep and let's do it quick, because that's I wanted a quick strike score. Ended up being a not so quick strike score, but they drove down the field. Another big play for him, and again, it's there are some insane people out there. I think I told you I saw Jets fans calling for him to be cut when he threw his helmet a couple weeks ago. It's like, I see some of the things people say, and I'm like, why do you even watch football? Seriously, like, not to say that I know more than the next guy, but I know that you don't cut an explosive, dynamic young receiver because he gets a penalty. You know what I mean? You're gonna cut every young guy who gets a flag because he loses his cool. You think should the Bengals cut AJ Green today because he grabbed the guy in a headlock and tried to throw him on the ground? Is it time to cut him now? You know what I mean?
That was crazy.
It was. That was. I only saw that one time, and like really didn't see what preceded it. But I was watching that, like, what the hell's going on? What transpired here? Like, 1 second it's a football game, and I look up and it's they're in the octagon with a rear naked choke. I was like, what the hell is going on? Definitely a weird scenario. I don't know. I would imagine something was said, because there was nothing that was clearly or that stood out to me, nothing that was done that would have warranted that retaliation. But that's the retaliation he got. But look, guys make mistakes, man. Robbie Anderson is the best deep threat this team has had in I don't know how long. I mean, seriously, when was the last time the Jets had a guy who you could consistently on a weekly basis go out there and say, at some point today, that guy's going to run past the cornerback as if he's standing still, and he goes out there and does it. He's not a secret anymore. People like to say that when in a guy's rookie year,
David Clowney.
He's young. Nobody has. Yeah, in the preseason. But they say, oh, he's young. He's undrafted. There's no film on him. First of all, there's film on him, you idiots. He went to a major college program. Just because a guy didn't get drafted doesn't mean there's no film on him. And, like, NFL executives have never heard of Robbie Anderson because he didn't get drafted. First of all, people know who he is. They know what he does. Now, they may have thought it wouldn't translate, which is fine, but clearly it has. And now here we are, middle of year 2, and he's still doing it. And what I love is that when he does it, when he runs those deep routes, whether it's a deep post or a go, he's often bringing a safety and a corner with him. So he's opening things up underneath for a guy like Austin Seferian Jenkins, which is why I'd like to see him down, run up the seam a little bit more. But Robbie Anderson, man, you got to tip your cap to him. He just keeps getting it done. We know he's worked extensively each of the last 2 off seasons with Chad Ochocinco, one of the best in the business in terms of footwork and, finding ways to get open. So, you won't find a much better mentor or tutor than Chad Ochocinco, and Robbie Anderson's clearly learned quite a bit from him. And it's exciting, man. Having a guy that's explosive, it's been a long time since they had somebody like this.
Yeah, Glenn, honestly, since I've been watching the Jets, diehard fans in like maybe 2004, 5, like I was 11, 12 when I really started to watch like every single game of the Jets. I can't remember a consistent deep threat as good as Robbie Anderson. And people are going to say, oh, well, like the dumb people out there, sorry for calling you dumb, but, oh, well, they had Eric Decker. What are you talking? Like, okay, Eric Decker won with route running. Oh, well, Brandon Marshall, he won with his physicality. But, Robbie Anderson in terms of just blowing by guys like this play, and you said he usually takes a safety, and that's a good point here. The Bills are in a cover one, man. This linebacker right here has man on the running back, and then this linebacker is just in a hook zone. Right around here, he could adjust it a little bit, go sideline to sideline. He obviously has a little bit of free range. You don't have to say, okay, well, if your zone is here and here, you cannot go outside that line or you burn alive. Like people could drift out a little bit and you have a deep safety. And the Jets run 4 verticals, vertical, and vertical. So when you have 4 verticals, it keeps this cover 1 safety who's, cover one safety deep. He's going to keep him inside because then he could either, jump on this or jump this. He can't play to all the way to this sideline, to the field side sideline, or sorry, the boundary side sideline or the field side sideline, basically taking himself out of the play. So what we see here from Anderson is what we see a lot of weeks where he is right here. He is going to give the little hesitation on the 9 route. It gets the cornerback to hesitate just a little bit. And, if I'm playing Robbie Anderson, I'm pressing him. I'm pressing the crap out of him. I'm trying to be physical against that whole 150 pounds of him probably. People don't do that. When you give him a free release and then you're going to flip your hips and run with him when he's about even with you, he's one of those guys, Glenn, like you said, a deep vertical threat. When he's even, he's gone. And this is exactly what happens. This corner, I think I don't know who it is here. I forget who it is, but he flips his hip and runs way too late, and Robbie Anderson burns by him because Robbie Anderson is just really that fast, where he has a good, I would say about 1.5 yards, almost 2 yards right here. So another play from Robbie Anderson, another good week from him. But Glenn, this is like almost my last film clip. So I promise we'll move a little bit quicker. Okay, so positives from the defense, Glenn. Anything that stands out from you from the defense? We talked about, Davis overall, 8 tackles right here, a sack, 2 tackles for loss, filling gaps, played really, really well. We saw Lee with 8 tackles, 1 sack, 2 tackles for loss. He played pretty well. May and Adams, May was quiet, which is good for a guy who plays deep coverage a lot. You don't want to see him a lot unless it's coming up in the run game, but overall I think May had a good game. Adams had another good game, filling gaps. He was filling the gaps on the outside a lot, but there's still some times where he's diving at guys' ankles too much, which I don't necessarily like. I like when, guys do the Seahawks way of tackling where they're going to grab you by the thighs, wrap your legs up, pull them through the chest and either roll or drive your legs, or, the classic tackling, head across their body, drive your legs, whatever it may be. He dives at ankles too much, which I don't necessarily like, but he was still doing a good job filling gaps and tackling McCoy. Regardless if I don't like his tackling, he was still making the play and tackling McCoy. We saw that little lapse in coverage when he had the deep middle third, where he could have reacted a little bit better to the post from Zay Jones on the backside. But overall, he's been playing really well, and there's a stat out there of his snaps. Let me just find it right here. 32 at linebacker this game, 29 at safety, 6 at cornerback, 4 as edge. So he's playing all over the field, and it's not like we're asking this guy, okay, well, you're a safety or whatever. Okay, play deep coverage, play deep in cover 2, cover 3, cover 4. We're asking him to play linebacker, cornerback. He's an edge. He's a rusher. He's a blitzer. He's covering tight ends. He's covering receivers. So we're asking him to do a lot. So obviously you're going to see him mess up a little bit. Overall, still really impressed with both the safeties. Adams has been struggling a little bit more, but I think that's also because he's asked to do a lot. But overall, I think they both had a good game. You talk about McClendon being really disruptful. We showed that play where he, negated DeMarco from coming over on a counter tray and taking out DeMario Davis. So I thought they all had some good games.
Yeah, listen, we've said it several times, and rightfully so. It was just a phenomenal all-around effort from the defense. Minus a couple of little hiccups. As you said earlier, Buster Screen. I talked about Justin Burris. So no, perfect game, far from it, but damn good. You can't really heap enough praise. Hard to imagine them playing that well against anyone. Defense comes out and plays that well. You have a chance to win every single week. So the thing from this point forward to me becomes consistency. Do we see opposing quarterbacks under this much duress on a regular basis? Because if we do, you look at some of these teams they have coming up. Tampa Bay, forget about it. They should steamroll Tampa Bay. I saw today they're a 1-point favorite. I can't believe that. That's Vegas begging you to take that bet. That almost worries me, to be honest. That should be much bigger, but it's not. Carolina struggled at times, and they just traded Kelvin Benjamin. They just traded a big asset to that offense, not a burner, but a guy who can win a jump ball, good red zone target. So maybe their offense takes a step back. San Diego's still on the schedule. They're not very good right now, and haven't been very good all year. So definitely several winnable games on this schedule, and especially again if they come out playing anywhere near as well as they played against Buffalo this week. I know obviously it doesn't work out that way because, as I said, then they'd have another 50 or so sacks from here on out. That's not happening. But consistent pressure and good play on the back end. If they get Claiborne back in there and he can stay healthy, they've already won more games than people thought they would, and they probably got a few left in them.
Yeah, okay, and moving on to the positive from the defense, they're positive. You saw Jenkins with the 2 tackles for loss, the 2 sacks. We saw both the middle linebackers playing really well. We also saw them containing Tyrod a lot where they were spies, and there was times where the Jets were outside contain rushing where they would come around the outside and they would be spying. Once the contain rush got behind Tyrod, or even with Tyrod, the linebackers who aren't spy, whether it be Davis or Lee, would rush Tyrod from that point on because they knew he couldn't get outside the pocket. At least, it would be really difficult. So we saw them get some sacks that way. So that was really nice from them. We saw Wilkerson, obviously. We talked about McClendon, and we talked about Williams. So other than that from the defense, I really don't have too much, Glenn. In terms of the negatives from the offense, we talked about Austin Seferian-Jenkins not being involved a lot, only 2 targets, 2 targets, 2 receptions. So that's good from him. We saw the one on the hitch route where he threw the ball. The Bills had piss poor tackling. He ran for an extra, about 10 yards. Then we saw the touchdown that was negated where, I can understand it. He pushed off a little bit on the receiver. So not the receiver, the cornerback. So I get it. Was a little ticky-tacky. Yeah,
that was a little ticky-tack call.
It was ticky-tacky, but it wasn't like the Austin Seferian-Jenkins call in the back of the, or against the Patriots. So you can understand it. Like the Patriots game, there was no explanation. For the other game, I saw him extend his arm a little bit. So, it happens. But, overall, he made plays when the ball was thrown to him other than that big holding call. Tomlinson, your boy, I think he had a good game as the fullback, filling some guys, blocking the Mike backer or the Sam or whoever it may be. He had a good job sealing some guys. So he had a good game in that term. But that one drop he had, which was the Jets, I believe they ran an inside zone split play action, and he leaked out in the flat away from the play action play side, and he dropped the ball wide open. The Jets had to kick a field goal. So you'd like to see him catch that. Glenn, any other negatives from the offense?
No, like I said, I loved it. I love the game plan. I love the jumbo packages. I love the way they used Tomlinson. I like the fact that once they got the run game going, they didn't stop. Heavy dose of the run game. and just wore the Bills down. So I loved it, every aspect of it. It was, again, are there a couple of little things here and there you'd like differently? Sure.
Yeah.
But, if that's the case in any game. So, when you have a chance to sit back and second guess and do the hindsight thing.
Yep.
But love the game plan, love the execution, and just fantastic job by John Morton in that offensive line.
Yeah, and for the most, I always say, like you said, there's a couple of bad plays, and we see, a bad play here in a zone run, especially like an inside zone. So let's say Wesley Johnson right here, there's a 90-50-10 rule where if this guy's on inside the play gap or to the left of him or to the play side gap, he's 90%. He's going to take him full block on the first level. If he's over the top right here, there's a 50% chance on a combo that he's going to take him. And if he's here, there's only a 10% chance where he might, throw out a jam arm and help, Brian Winters get to him, or, if there's a guy right here in the one technique. But like right here on this, like you see some bad plays where, Carpenter and Wesley Johnson are on a combo block. Carpenter doesn't, I guess he doesn't help Wesley Johnson enough. Wesley Johnson can't hold that block. He penetrates into the backfield. Carpenter on the second level can't hold the block on a linebacker. He gets past Beachum to the left right here. Doesn't seal off his blocker. He rips him, gets around him, gets to him. So overall, just the entire offensive line in this play had a bad time. And even on the backside of the play right here, you have Winters and Quale who are combo block and try to get to the second level here. They fail to because Winters trips and then whatever. But like I said, there's a bad play. Even if they play a great game, there's going to be a couple of bad offensive line plays. That's my last play, Glenn, so we'll move on quicker. Okay, so we went through negatives of the offense, negatives of the defense. Now let's move on to special teams. Special teams, there's nothing really too much to talk about. Catanzaro was 2 for 2 along with 45, made 4 for 4 on his extra point attempts. Black Leonard was, he had 5 punts for 41.6. Nothing too much to report there. There's some games where he's having 50 average, but it depends on the context of the situation. If the Jets are punting
field position, they didn't need him to boom a lot of kicks this week. He did a nice job putting the ball where they wanted him to, and he's a much improved player. People underestimate the importance of a good punter. The way he's been able to flip the field consistently, that's punter or not, that's another asset, another solid draft pick because you could do a lot worse. If you can find a guy who, in any way, shape, or form, to contribute at a high level in the 6th round, you take it. So another nice pickup. We thought, not just we, a lot of people thought maybe some camp competition to push him a little bit while he was struggling. Jets obviously had enough faith in him that they didn't bother. They just stuck with the guy and let him keep working with Brant Boyer. And now we're starting to see the results of that. Okay,
Glenn, a couple more topics, and we're going to wrap this up so you can get on to bed. And, quite frankly, so I can tune a little bit. But, overall from the coaching, I like that the Jets blitzed Tyrod a lot. We saw him get away from that a couple of weeks where they were letting the quarterback stand pretty in the pocket. I believe it was, before the fourth quarter, they blitzed him on 75% of his dropbacks. And obviously we saw it work. They had 5 sacks before the start of the fourth quarter. So I like that from the Jets coaching staff, how they contained rush Tyrod and how they made that a point to get around to the outside so he didn't have a lane to escape the pocket. That was also nice. Offense, obviously, scoring 37 points for a team who, there was people before the season who would say the Jets would have the worst offense in the entire history of the NFL. To put up 37 points versus a defense who's been playing really, really well is obviously really impressive. A lot of motions, a lot of clear out routes, a lot of rubs, getting these guys manufacturing, touches for these guys to get them open, not just, okay, you go run a curl and get open. They're doing a lot of different things, and they have a lot of versatility in their route running, and you see a lot of different route combinations during a game. So that's really nice to see from Morton and this offense. Glenn, anything from coaching you want to touch on really quickly before we get to some other mini topics before we get to the Jets and Bucks game and the NFL picks of the week, et cetera?
No, that about covers it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good from there.
What do you think? Curley being suspended for 4 games. Now we get to see our Darius Stewart more, get to see Hanson more, maybe some touches on jet sweeps or end arounds, whatever it may be for Stewart, which is nice to see because we want to see some development from the young guys. Curley was probably getting too many reps anyway, but now that he's suspended, it's a shoo-in that Stewart and Hanson are going to get more reps. So not too big of news there. It's not like, it's kind of like the same thing as Mike Evans getting suspended. They're just as good of players. So.
Yeah, exactly. That evens it out. Yeah, really surprising. I mean, I know that anybody at any size can use roids, but you don't look at Jeremy Curley and think he's using PEDs. You know what I mean? He's rail thin, small guy, but a positive is a positive. You got to assume he was using. So it opens the door for our Darius Stewart, like you said, Chad Hansen. I was starting to wonder if we were going to see Jalen Marshall get the call from the practice squad, or maybe a guy like JoJo Natson. He's a guy not a lot of fans are familiar with, but he's a diminutive guy, 5'7", but he's a burner, and he had a very impressive preseason with the Colts. I kind of threw his name out there as a guy that might, but they ended up bringing back
Ed Stinson. Yeah, Ed Stinson. Every time I watch him on film was just pretty terrible, and I said that last week that he's just not impressive at all. Glenn, now one Twitter question before we get to our picks, and we can get you, like I said, to sleep. We got a question from @AJ Perg on Twitter, who actually left us a very good review. He said, attracting Cousins or helping Petty will require improving the offensive line. What are our suggestions as to how the Jets might do it?
If they I'm so convinced that the Redskins are not going to let him walk in exchange for nothing. I think at the very least they will tag him again, at which point he can be traded for without any cap hit, and you let him work out a new contract with the team that's trading for him. So I think first the Jets would have to trade for him, so I don't think free agency would be an issue. But the great thing about possibly trading for an Alex Smith or a Kirk Cousins basically means, honestly, as a Jets fan, I'm not going to lose my mind if they go defense in the first round again. Because once you get a quarterback, this team is good enough that you're back in best player available mode. And maybe you go with a left tackle if there's one on the board. The guard position is a little bit tricky because, they just gave Winters that big deal, so he's not going anywhere. And Carpenter, while he's had a down year, he's not a bad player. So I don't know if they can touch the guard position. I think they do. They will draft or sign a center. So I don't think the line is as bad. I mean, again, and you have to put it into context. Watch the Giants and tell me the Jets O-line is bad. Watch the Seahawks and tell me the Jets O-line is bad. Like, there are some atrocious.
The Seahawks did just trade for Dwayne Brown from the Texans, though, so see that's probably going to help them a lot.
They added him, but as a unit, there's just some horrible O-lines out there. So the Jets are not great, but they're kind of probably middle of the pack. And if you can trade Kirk, and let's say hypothetically, for the sake of the question, you say Kirk Cousins hits free agency, the Jets can, if the Jets approach him and say, look, one of the things we're going to do, we're going to prioritize. We're either going to take a left tackle in the first or second round if you come here, to compete with Kelvin Beachum, which, the thing with Kelvin Beachum, he's got that big prohibitive cap hit too, but you have enough cap room that you don't not upgrade at left tackle with a blue chip guy if he's available because you have Kelvin Beachum. You eat that money. Kelvin Beachum becomes a backup guy. He becomes the most overpaid backup in the league, and nobody gives a damn because if you get a first-round legit talent at left tackle, everyone's happy.
Yeah, and quickly, I think I'm a little bit lower on the offensive line. I would say like right in that 20 range, a little bit lower because their run blocking at times is just absolutely piss poor. But yeah, I don't think they touched the guard spot. I don't think they really touched the right tackle because you have Shell there, obviously. So I think you're no doubt about it. You're going to bring in a center either through free agency. You're going to prioritize it in the draft in the first 3 rounds because he's been just absolutely miserable as a center this year. And then like you just perfectly you laid it out with Beachum. If you can find a guy, let's say, second round, Mr. whoever it is, Alex Jones from, school X falls to second round. He's supposed to be a top 20 pick. You're going to draft that left tackle. And if he's playing well in training camp, then you know what, maybe you try to reach a settlement or whatever with Beachum, buy him out, trade him for whatever you can do, get as much cap relief as you can. But at the same time, there's going to be those fans who are going to blame the Jets. Oh, they're playing him and blah, blah, blah. Then I guess just don't get the better player.
Yeah, don't upgrade because you might have to bench somebody.
The Jets aren't going to have $94 million. They can afford an $8 million cap hit if they really need it to get a left tackle, which is a top, 5 position, important position on a team, at least in my opinion. So I agree with that. So yeah, center, address it. If there's a good left tackle floating around, you can buy him out in free agency, or you can draft him in the first or second round. Go ahead and do it. So Glenn, moving on to our picks. We both went 2-3 last week. Well, my computer froze. Yes, we both went 2-3 last week, and I'm 23-12. You are 22-13. We both picked the Bills, who obviously lost to the Jets 34-21. We both picked the Jags, who beat the Bengals 23-7. We both picked the Saints, who beat the Bucks 30-10. We both picked the Falcons, who lost 20-17 to Carolina, and we both picked the Chiefs, who lost on the road to the Cowboys 28-17. So like I said, both 2-3. These are our records. I'm 25-15. You're 24-16. This week, Glenn, quick synopsis on the Jets game, score prediction, couple sentences, whatever you want.
What for Jets Bucks? I mean, they gotta win this one running away. I mean, that D line has to be able to put pressure on Ryan Fitzpatrick. Ryan Fitzpatrick is he's a gunslinger without the gun. He likes to try to go deep. I think he's going to see this as a revenge game. In his mind, he's going to want to hit on a few deep passes. And those safeties back there, Marcus May primarily, is the deep guy. I think they're going to have some opportunities to pick off some floaters. I think they win that one.
Yeah, it's a Sunday at 1:00 game. I'm not sure who the refs are or anything like that, so I'm not going to call it out. Now, Glenn, what is your score prediction on this one?
I'm going to say Jets win big. I'm going to say 28-10 Jets.
28-10. I'm going to say 27-13. I'll say. I think they're going to have a good game. They're going to put up some points versus this team, who's probably going to be a little bit deflated after losing, Winston, who had that was a crazy fight on the sideline with Marshawn Lattimore, which I don't know why a player on the sideline's coming and poking the player anyway. Regardless, you don't have Evans too. That might hurt their confidence a little bit, versus a quarterback versus like Fitz, just like what teams did to us last year. You're going to stack the box. You're going to dare him to throw deep. You're going to not give them anything in the middle of the field. They're going to dare them to either throw it deep or outside the numbers, like McCown can't do. But Fitz just has a weaker arm, so give them those deeper out routes or the comebacks, something like that. The routes you can't really throw. Zone blitz them, confuse them, because we know with Fitzpatrick, if he thinks he sees something before the snap, he's throwing the ball there. Even if a guy, floats down or whatever it may be, or if a robber comes, he's going to throw the ball regardless. So confuse them pre-snap. And I think the Jets win this game. Like I said, 27-13, I'll say. Glenn, moving on, let's go Sunday, 1:00, the 6-2 Saints at the 5-3 Bills.
I'm gonna take the Saints. The way they're playing right now, hard to pick against them. The Bills obviously will have that little bit of extra rest, and they'll be at home. But the way the Saints defense is playing right now, I don't see the Bills receivers being able to do a whole lot. And Drew Brees is still playing at a very high level. I expect a New Orleans win in that game.
Glenn, really quickly, what did you say for the Jets Bucks game? What would you say the score was?
28-10.
28-10, and you're going to take the Saints. I'm going to take the Saints as well here. I think the Bills are not as good as their record shows, even though they have been playing well. I think they're going to fall back down to earth, especially after an extremely disappointing game against the Jets. So I'm going to take the Saints, even though they are in Buffalo. Next game, Glenn, Sunday, 1:00, the 3-5 Bengals at the 5-3 Titans. Now, I had to pick one bad game. There wasn't too many good ones this week.
I like the Titans. I like that Marcus Mariota protects the ball. I like the way they run the ball. And, Cincinnati's not a bad team, but you said at Tennessee, right?
Yeah, it's at Tennessee.
Yeah, so I'm going with the home team in this one. I think it'll be a close game, but I'm taking Tennessee.
Yeah, me too. I think Tennessee's been a little bit disappointing, even though they are at 5-3, but a really physical team is going to punch you in the mouth, play some good defense. Mariota has been a little bit more disappointing than I thought he would be this year at times. But I'm still going to take the Titans just because they're home. If the Bengals are home, I would probably take them at home, but they're kind of disappointing this year as well. And that's probably why, AJ Green might have, tossed Ramsey because of some, frustration. I think he only had one catch before that point. Next game, the 5-3 Cowboys at the 4-4 Falcons.
I'm going to go with the Cowboys. I think Zeke is back. He's playing very well. And
Is he suspended?
I believe he's going to be suspended tomorrow, but reinstated on Wednesday. Suspended on Thursday afternoon, reinstated Thursday night, and then reinstated on Friday.
What? Where'd you hear that from? You're joking around. I'm about to say, what?
Yes, I'm joking.
At first I believe you, and you started saying it multiple times, like, okay, this guy is screwing me here.
Yeah, this whole situation has become an absolute joke. I don't just stop. Just suspend them or don't. Like, what the hell's going on? But I think he's back. The numbers are there to back it up. I think, but you also have to guard against the letdown after a big win against the Chiefs. Sometimes teams, come off a big win like that and they lay an egg. But I think Jason Garrett will have them ready and they pull out a win.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Cowboys if Zeke plays. Now, if he doesn't play, I'm going with the Falcons. I don't know if you want to do that too, because we just don't know if he's going to be suspended or not. But yeah, Cowboys if Zeke plays. If he doesn't, I'll take the Falcons at home. They got to bounce back. I just don't. I think they're too talented of a team to be 4-4. Now, Glenn, probably the best game of the week on this one. The 1-7 Giants at the 0-9 49ers. What do you think happens on this one?
I think the Giants, man. Woo! I mean, it's this, but it's not going to be as funny when they draft Josh Rosen. But even still, I mean, that team, they are a disaster. They need a new coach.
I'm feeling a butt coming.
No buts. They're just bad. There's no. I'm taking the Niners, and the Giants are worse than people thought the Jets were going to be.
Yeah, Glenn, I was on this one. I was either going to go the opposite way of you because I think they're just both really, really bad teams. But I guess I'll take the Giants away on the West Coast. I don't know why, but I guess the 49ers are going to be 0-9, and the Giants are going to get that, really prestige second win of the season through almost, 9 games or 10 games that it will be at that point. So, but that will do it. Thank you everybody for listening. Like I said, we'll post this link on YouTube. Obviously you're not going to be listening to it or whatever. Until we post it, we'll put it on Blog Talk. We will post it to YouTube. We'll put it on all the, on all the social media sites. We'll put it on JetNation.com, how to get there, how to listen. Like I said, if you just want to listen, you can still go to the Blog Talk app. It's still going to be the same JetNation podcast where you used to go. You click on it. We're still going to be on that feed. YouTube will be different. You just go to JetNation on YouTube, click on it, and it'll be under JetNation Radio. So we appreciate everybody for listening. Leave some reviews, please. We did not get one this week. There's thousands of people listening. It takes 1, maybe 2 minutes to leave a review, and that helps us out a lot. So please do that if you could. We appreciate everybody for listening. We'll be back on video next week. Hopefully the audio will be clean. No, not the audio. Maybe the video, I'll have it cleaned up a little bit where I'm not recording off my phone. We'll see. But like I said, we appreciate everybody for listening. We'll be back.